I was in with the prayer.
Oh, nice. We're gonna do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, 6:30, 6:35. Durkee Farm bond reduction request. I assume that's why you're here.
It is. I'm here to answer any questions.
Okay. So we have 380, and they want to reduce it to 280, so they want to take 100 out?
Okay, well, there are two different bonds.
Okay.
Probably this K one is a little easier to look at first.
Okay.
Selected on the
Can I pull this up or no? Can we?
Applicant's request, you can.
Oh, if I pull it there,
So you click on that, and then what do you do?
then it just opens.
There it is.
You know what, we should have school children here with us, like third graders, to do all of this stuff for us. They know it a lot better than we do.
We'd have to pay them a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so,
So for K Estates, the current bond in place is $270,000.
Yeah.
They're requesting a reduction to $110,000. Recommend releasing the $160,000 that was requested. Green International reviewed it, and they agree with that.
so that's the K one.
That's the K, that's Fur Lane only, that's the small cul-de-sac that goes off of Fraser Street.
Okay.
And they had bonded all of the construction and got everything done, well, a lot of it done through binder course.
Okay, so let's go to Durkee then.
Okay, Durkee. So the bond in place is $380,000. They're requesting a reduction to $280,000. But given the concerns that have been raised about detention ponds 2 and 3, Green came up with a bond amount to completely reconstruct both of those. Can't imagine that it would take reconstruction of both of those, but, so I just, throw out the worst case situation, and at least we'll have something to talk about.
So what's the worst
It
number?
would be $33,800 to reconstruct both of those.
All right, so in round numbers, we're dropping it to,
So you would release $66,200 of the Durkee.
of the 100, okay, I get you. So Durkee is 66, 200, and K is,
160.
Yeah.
all right, so does the board have any issues with that? You're okay with that, right?
We are.
I mean, essentially what we're saying is we're going to have the basins remedied, right?
Correct. So before, obviously, we propositioned the town for street acceptance. Everything will be in working order. So the bond is surety to make sure that that happens prior to application.
Do you have a sense of time frame for that? Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you have a sense of time frame for that?
Finish coat was supposed to go down this week. It didn't happen because of rain, so it's going to go down next week. I would imagine, either spring 19 or fall 19 would be when we're looking to do that. And it's all contingent, obviously, on remedying the situation that's out there.
So another year that the ponds don't work?
Not necessarily.
Well, you're saying up to.
Well, it could either be spring town meeting or fall town meeting, so we're restricted by those dates.
As far as acceptance goes,
Correct.
so. But you're sure we have enough money to rebuild those ponds if we have to rebuild them?
Given that when we originally got approvals with a preliminary bond, it was only $7,500 per pond, I think this is well in excess of that.
Right now, they're holding water. They don't work at all. So the last thing I want is the town to be responsible to have to make something work after the developer tries to donate everything that in the open space of the town. Not that he's not donating that, that's part of the infrastructure, correct?
Correct.
So, are we okay with the bond releases? Anyone have any other?
Make a motion to release the bonds as requested. The amount on the bonds, that's it.
Do we wanna, are you gonna put the numbers in when we're done?
Okay, so.
160 and the 33, right? 33.
160 and release,
66.
66,200.
Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is that 4-1? Peter, did you say aye?
He-
What do you think
He
seconded?
was a
We
second.
didn't, I didn't hear you say aye, just because you seconded.
Verbalize.
Just making sure. It's my hearing is going, well. All right. Come on. I died. So anyway, that's all right. So town meeting warrant articles. We know we got 5 minutes to go with that. Anything else we got going on, Myron, that we need to talk about before?
Well, it's a discussion, it's not a hearing, so you could take it early if you want.
Okay, sure. Oh, I'm back up.
Gotcha.
Warrant articles, transfer of dirt to open space, Article 6. Developers agreed to delaying the transfer of parcels A and B until the roadway is accepted by the town, so while we have you here, I think that's an agreeable. So we'll just take it off, and depending on when you're ready to apply for road acceptance, whether it's spring or fall town meeting, we can put it back on at that time.
But, yeah,
Right, we're not ready for
Delaying the transfer of A and B, which is
the open space.
until they get their road approved and we accept their road.
Right.
No. Take it now.
What?
Did we take it now?
It's
I
not,
think that there's some,
right.
Mara can explain it, but
Let's see, there would need to be one more easement put into place for the mailboxes and possible future bus shelter.
Correct.
And Conservation Commission has issues with the maintenance that would occur between now and when the developer's no longer responsible for mowing the open space.
Who then becomes responsible for it? The town?
That's a good question that we need to finish discussing. One of the ideas was a homeowners association might be asked to do it. I don't think that loop has been closed yet.
probably an easier discussion when the road's accepted and, or being discussed to be accepted, because they're gonna want the plowing and the services.
Do it all in one package.
So at that time, we can ask for the covenant for the maintenance to be paid for through the homeowners association.
We giving up all our power in this?
So there's
What if
a,
the what if the association says no? No, we don't want to pay for the mowing of it.
Then we
Why
don't
should
accept the roads. We don't put it on as a warrant article.
and then if the homeowners association, I mean, do they have say of who comes and goes on it?
No, it's just the maintenance, it's town land.
Okay,
We're requiring them to maintain town land.
and if they say no, then,
We go back to the developer, because it's still the developer's issue. That's why we shouldn't accept it until we're all done with it.
Good call.
Because it's still
Thank you
their
for
property.
clarifying that for me.
So it's, yeah, one nice little package, the drainage is done, the distribution of the open space, and who's gonna maintain it should all be done at the same time before it goes to town meeting.
Very good.
We have a little more control if they want the road accepted, so they don't have to maintain it anymore, so we can talk to them about
I
who's
got
gonna, okay? A little more leverage.
So if that's the direction you want to go, I would recommend voting to withdraw Article 6 from the warrant.
So,
Second?
second,
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Good, I got that
You
one.
get that one?
I got that one.
Did you ask Anna? She said, yeah.
I heard her on this is a good ear, that's the bad ear.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Are
you.
you done? That's it?
That is it for this evening.
Oh,
enjoy
okay.
yourself.
Stick around, get a couple more bucks if you'd like. We'll answer some questions.
All right, so,
I got a question. Can I bring up something?
sure.
A couple of months ago, we had a discussion about why Gray Farm doesn't have a second exit.
And we talked to Roddy about coming in to discuss the second exit.
I mean, when is he coming in?
And that's,
When would you like to speak with him?
Last week?
so why don't we ask Mr., do we, have any more lots to be released, or?
No.
Well, he still has more lots there.
Right.
they're all released, right?
Right, and he's been paying full taxes on them since, for the last, what, 15 years? 12
So why don't we send him a letter that he's in violation of the 20-year-old open space plan, we need a second means of egress out there.
Okay, well, Chris Stoddard will be weighing in on that. He says it's a secondary access that he's never gonna maintain.
So then maybe
So
we
now
get,
the question is.
Do we
the
want
question,
real access?
Do you want the access or not?
we do.
Well,
You can't have 60 houses out there with no second way to get out at them in case,
Going on for what, 20 years?
well, it should have been done. There's no reason that it wasn't
Who was
done.
in control back then?
I don't know, that was before my time.
I think your time started
So I think-
27 years ago.
the discussion
didn't.
would be better had if you include the highway department.
Absolutely, so when we
Well, the highway, maybe fire, and also the development. So why don't we ask them all to
ask
come
them
in?
both to come in, yes.
And not
So
for,
meaning that we
not,
don't have overscheduled already?
yeah, so not for November 1st.
Exactly.
Right.
We have enough on that agenda.
Bye, Peter, are you gone for the day, or, you know?
Who knows?
I guess, all right, anyway. All right, so he hits and runs on that one, okay. What else? Any other?
Brady did have met us out on site, and we had
Oh,
discussed.
that's right, you guys did.
Right. And
I couldn't make that one, yes. And he's agreeable to do it, it's just,
yeah, the question is, does it make any sense to, at this point, to have them do it if the town has said that they're not gonna maintain it?
oh, he's got to still maintain it.
Not after it's
Yes,
accepted.
it hasn't been accepted.
At such time that it's
Okay,
accepted,
then-
why would we be asking the developer to make the whatever dollars of improvements for infrastructure that's not gonna be maintained by the town?
We need it, it's a safety issue, you know, I mean, if anything, what happened out in,
Oh, yeah, you're not, okay, I'm happy, yeah, we'll bring everybody in for the conversation.
it's still a safety issue. There's 60-something houses out there that the service,
52.
52, all right, excuse me, I stand corrected by
With the
you.
potential for how many more?
I think that's it,
That's it.
that's all.
So all of, we're talking about Bray Farm again?
Yeah, no, when you left and came back, we're still talking about Great Farm.
And all those houses are built?
No,
All the lots exist.
all the lots are released and he's paying full taxes on them, even though they're not built.
Or he's just paying the taxes on its buildable lots?
Mhm.
Correct.
But once
Release
again, how many
lots.
people, how many houses are occupied down
I don't know.
We don't know.
there? 30?
I'll bet there's probably more than that, but.
Wow. I suggest we get that road fixed, PDQ.
All right, so we'll ask him to come in and ask Chris Stoddard to join him, and we can have the discussion between both of them.
$300 a day fine for not showing up?
Sure.
Put that in the paperwork.
Once we set a date.
Set the date today.
We are, we're gonna try to get him on for December. November's a little packed.
It'll be a quickie. Get him in. First round,
Try-
November.
We have, our agenda is packed for November.
Just be a little quicker about it, won't get it over with faster.
We'll stop talking about it, put it on December. We go on to the next item.
There you go. Now you do.
Okay, next, I think that's all we can do for right now, right?
Article 10,
Article 10, Littleton Smart Sewer
Oh, yeah,
Design,
that's-
borrowing $2.2 million.
They're asking us to weigh in and support the smart sewering.
Absolutely.
Are you gonna let it, are you in favor of it by some strange coincidence?
I am.
That's two.
I am not.
Jamie?
I'm actually on the fence with this because of, I see so much empty commercial space, and I think that the common area has moved down to the point, and I feel like the ship has sailed on the common, so that's where I am at.
I don't feel as if the ship has sailed. Has activity shifted down to the point? Yes. However, the end user is the main payer for this. And the end user is the town of Littleton. So for us to in the high school septic system is good for another 20 years. If we have to replace a pumping station for $1 million, it's a lot less than 27 million, what it says right now, where it was up in the upper 30s, wasn't it? How did it come down, $10 million? I'm wondering about that, and then it says 180 or more properties in Littleton Common. How many of those 180 have signed up to saying, yeah, we will take the betterment? How many of them say, I'm good for the money?
That's a discussion, should be discussed at town meeting.
Well, that discussion should, well, if you're looking for our approval on
Okay.
it, then I think we ought to have the information. If out of 180, 40 people say, out of that 180 say, yeah, I'm good with it, then why are we doing it for the common area? If there's no reason to.
Right.
And again, the school system handles all the affluent it needs to handle now, and it's good for another 20 years.
And I
I
guess,
think the engineer should weigh in on that before you proclaim that to be the truth.
and my question is, I mean, are all the ducks in a row? Like this gets approved and then, you know, the next step is, you know, pulling it all together to tie in all these businesses and, I mean, what would be the scoop with parking? Like I see it all mapped out here, but do we know that we'll be able to access all the parking and everything? And put this, we could go forward with this and not have anything link into it.
So I think you're gonna be ready to go to the open house on next Thursday night.
Yeah, so that's pretty good for it. I think we should
Yeah.
all go as a board.
Yeah.
to-
Yeah, so that'll be more to gathering the input on, you know, what could be possible in the common.
I think the idea, I would hate to say that the ship has sailed on the common. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think mixed uses, and when we're talking about senior residential development along with density, it's a great place for density to occur, and the only way that that can occur is if there is a sewer system to tie into. If we, you know, we're seeing the pushback on the senior residential development as it's designed currently. So if we have locations where it can be situated, where it can be supported, and where you have mixed uses, now you have the amenities for the seniors, the sewer for the development, and the mixed uses where you could have a successful revitalization of our common.
And what has been the feedback from the businesses currently up there?
From the businesses, well, in terms of folks that attended, including business people, because we couldn't really separate them out, it has definitely been positive. And so, for example, if you look up there, the second bullet says over 90% of commercial properties in project area want to be a part of the smart sewer system. So that's 90%. That's quite a few people that say
How
what
many
they
is
want.
that, 90%? If there's 9 out of 10, yeah, that's a good 90%, but if it's 9 business people out of 150 potential users, then that's not.
So
90%
then,
is
that number's going to
irrelevant.
be significant. I mean, it's all the businesses that are in the common, so in terms of the sewer project area.
How many?
Off the top of my
10,
head, I don't.
50?
It's a lot more than 10.
So we
More
don't
than
meet
50?
again until.
It has to be 100
Town meeting, right?
20 in order to be 960 in order to be 90 of the
Peter,
180.
You're asking questions, I think.
They could be answered on next Thursday.
Yep.
Right.
So we
Well,
don't-
no,
We don't need a vote
Yeah.
tonight then. We
Well,
can
and-
vote in
and that's-
educational lesson.
that's the question. And actually, the information on smart sewer is not necessarily going to be at the 11th. That'll be more about the revitalization of the Littleton Common. What do residents want to see at the Common? I don't know the date of the next information meeting for smart sewer.
Well, so do you think you'll be able to be at the meeting next Thursday? It's going to be an open house between 6:30 and 8:30, so you can kind of come and go based on your schedules.
Do you want to defer until we
How would we do?
have a chance to go look?
I think that's probably a wise decision.
Okay. So, they're still gonna want our endorsement before town meeting,
Yeah, or.
at town meeting.
Or you could do it at town meeting either.
Now, can we, if we don't decide that night, can we take a vote on town meeting floor before the meeting starts to,
So would we have to call a meeting?
well, we could post it. And then we'd have to show up and just vote it, and if you want to stay at town meeting, you can, otherwise.
Okay.
When is town meeting?
That sounds reasonable, at least we can.
Monday, October 29th.
No, that's good.
Good.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair, do you have any
Vacation
thoughts on
meeting?
the sewer?
I don't think the baby's gone out with the bathwater as far as revitalizing the common. We already have a mixed use allowed in the common now. This is going to facilitate more mixed use in the common. And I do agree with Ed that if we're going to start looking at larger projects for senior housing, mixed use is the way to go with that. And the sewering is probably gonna be a key component to that. I agree with Peter in that we don't have a real number as to how many people really want it and what it's really gonna cost. But if we're gonna revitalize the common, I think it's important to have it for the common.
That portion, that part of it, okay. But who's gonna finance
The people.
the common?
I really wish.
The common
let's-
is not gonna
Right, so
finance
the information-
$27 million.
go to the informational
I've been to
forum
them, I've
on
read
it.
them.
Well,
Seen the
if you
things.
read them, then you wouldn't be asking those questions, because if you understood it, you'd understand that the people that are signing up for it are the ones that are funding it.
And that's what that
The
document
people that are
said.
funding it are the townspeople. We are the end user. The school, the fire department, the police department,
And
we are
and
the.
everybody else that connects to it.
But the difference is that
I agree with Peter, we're gonna be the biggest user.
the
of it.
biggest user is the townspeople, not the common, and not
Okay.
the houses along the way.
Anyway, so why don't
That's
we
it.
defer that until we can all see the presentation of it and we'll vote it at town meeting whether we wanna support it.
Else, are they gonna tie into my house? If we run all the way down there?
Or the board can choose not to provide a recommendation. That's-
I think we should weigh in one way or the other. It's plain what I think. We started the master plan, we're responsible for it. I think we should weigh in a yay or nay, and I don't mind postponing it till next Thursday, at least next Thursday, so that we can all be.
Where's the meeting at again?
It's at the fire station. No?
Littleton Middle School.
Okay, I was close.
Yeah.
It's in Littleton. All right.
Which school is that now?
The middle
The
school.
old high school?
55 Russell Street, the new school.
High school.
Yes, that location.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
the ones that, where we used to be part of the master plan update steering committee, we were at the middle school having those events. Same time, same place.
All right, 6:50, we have an A&R for 8094 King Street. Field Development LLC, lot line revisions. Do you have any paper plans? Can we take a look at it? Look at that. I don't care what you say about mine, she's on the ball.
I can just share.
I only say that this.
I'll share this with you, yeah?
Oh, you okay?
$2 million for one.
That's the Bruce Street one.
No, of course.
Does anybody have any issues with this? The plain old A&R.
Right, it's right to the parking lot is the item, right?
Right there, yeah. He's, when we asked him the last time, he said he's in discussion with the Fields about his parking lot. I think he's aware that he can't make his, reduce his parking. He's got X amount of spaces he needs for his business, so.
Well, the property, if I'm not mistaken, the property line currently goes through the parking lot. It just moves it.
Right.
Yeah, but when we originally did it, we left him time to straighten it all out, because he still has a special permit that's outstanding, because he hasn't finalized what his parking is. So, with this going now, we should actually have him finalize what he's doing.
Right, which all that would take would be a lease agreement to have the parking spaces on somebody else's lot. until it goes to construction.
Yeah, but then what happens when it goes to construction? He's gonna lose those spaces. So he's gotta make sure he has enough spaces, because he's never come back to us with a site plan that showed all the parking.
You're right, and if you remember, Mr. Strathmeyer stated that they were working on that.
Right.
So where's a placeholder to make sure that that doesn't get lost in the overall discussions and Mr. Strathmeyer does in fact?
So once we sign this, we should bring him back in and have him give us a memorialize where his parking and how he's gonna do it.
Yeah, I can ask.
So, because it's more my
If it-
fault.
Right, if it turns into a zoning violation, then the town's recourse is through zoning enforcement. So you can always go that route, or we can just
Ask
request
him,
the
request
You
to
should
come.
have it straightened
Timeframe.
out now.
What?
Straighten it out now.
Well, we have this before us.
We can ask.
We can ask him to come in to give us his formal, remember when he came in a couple of years ago? He wasn't sure how he was gonna do it. We let him open, knowing full well he had that parking lot and it was accessible. Well, now it's not gonna, it possibly won't be accessible. We need an answer to that, to the site plan, sooner rather than later. So yeah, why don't we bring him in December?
That was, because Weber still owned all the property, so that was, it
Correct.
was, well, now,
They don't. Yeah, I agree, so let's bring him in
so what's he
December.
gonna end up with? If he loses, how many lots is he gonna lose there? How many parking spaces?
What's he gonna lose, 8 or 10 spaces there?
Well, actually, it's just really a swap. So you actually, there's parking in both of the parcels that we're swapping, so it's kind of like, doesn't make it any more, problematic than it already is. So he won't, I don't know if he'd lose any more spaces. It goes right through the middle of the.
Right, so
lot
if it's a
right now.
swap, then don't we need to affirm with him that it's a swap?
Right, and how you gonna get in
It's a
on
lot
it?
line change,
Well,
it's
he's
a
on.
parcel swap.
He's on the application, he signed the application.
Right.
So
Right,
let's-
and that has, the location of the lot line has nothing to do with how much parking is currently
Right.
there. The A&R does not put him in violation.
How many, do we sign in just the Mylar, or do we need to sign a paper copy?
If you would sign 2 paper copies, that'd be helpful.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the A&R for,
Second.
okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, so we'll take our time, and how many papers, 2?
Yeah. if you would, that'd be great.
All right, so here, take this one. You wanna hand that over? Yep.
How'd your meeting go today?
Hey,
Get your
talk.
car all fixed?
I got my 4 tires, yes, my brand new tires and all, thank you. I had a blowout up in Malden, around, just before I was getting to the highway. Not fun.
Must've been fun changing that on the side of the road.
Luckily, Michael was around, so he came and helped me.
A&R right up where I was here.
Yeah, you wanna get up and sign that while we're doing this one?
No, I don't sign anything that has anything to do with fields.
Okay.
Maybe vote.
All right, I'll sign it.
We had that discussion already.
We need to talk about that later, but yes.
Thank you for that reminder
What's that?
that you just said.
Diane Corey said I'm not even supposed to be in the same room listening to this stuff. No one.
Yeah, but you don't listen anyway, so it's not, it's a moot.
Depends on who you're talking.
Glad you could get over yourself
See what?
then.
Careful.
All right, we have a 7 o'clock A&R.
All three?
Bruce Street, Lori Lane. Look at that, we're on time.
I can sign this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you can sign this one if you want. You can sign it twice, how's that?
Say what?
These law lines were reconfigured just to make some, for compliance with conservation. So it was originally 3 lots when we did it the first time, it's still 3 lots.
The lot line, so the
You want me to point on the
father's
screen?
house could be built.
Sure.
Pretty easy, so I came to you, got an A&R for 3 lots, and everything was fine, and then conservation got their talons into me, and we had to move this lot line right here, it was here, we moved it over a pinch, then took this one, and it was here, and moved it out here, and we just squared this one off. So nothing changed in size, they're all still the same size, frontage changed a tiny bit on the front of this. This is still, you know, frontage that's included in the 6-acre parcel, which is my house. So basically, we just pop this there and pop this there so that we can make room for the 10-foot offset on the septic system.
Make a motion to approve.
So,
And I got
what-
a lot,
How come?
because I'm gonna move over there.
Thought your dad, why did your dad get the big one?
He gets the small one.
That's not fair.
He gets a free lot, isn't that good?
I have a quick question.
He gave you
Go
one.
ahead. Try to get your word in edgewise, go ahead.
So I just have a question.
Yeah.
What was the concern that Conscom had?
They found a pocket of wetlands, which was right here. So that pushed the 50-foot barrier where my septic was gonna go, and maybe move the septic down here. So then I pulled my father's outside of it as well. So we pulled out everybody's out, to make everybody, so everything's outside of the wetlands, everything's outside of the.
Everybody's good.
Yeah, everything's good.
Thank you.
Nice work.
I'll make a motion, entertain a motion to approve the A and R as presented.
I'll make the motion.
I'll accept the motion.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Don't you wanna wait until we sign it?
I gotta go back, coach football, I'm coaching 4, 5, 6 a little bit, so.
I'll take it with you if I was
Thank you.
They're on the field until 7:30. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we got an A&R application that came in today. You don't have a meeting within 21 days, so what would you like to do?
A and R for,
For Tehadawan Road, Glavy property.
okay. Is it one lot, is it?
If we don't do any action, it gets approved, right? No action?
Right,
Uh,
so
Is there any,
Where's
it's
the
not on the
paperwork
public
on
hearing,
that?
you have it though, right?
I have it,
I might as well take a look at it.
Aren't they supposed to give us a 10-day, if they give us 10 days prior to now, then?
Well, or you could add a meeting 10 days from now.
Well, we have to have a meeting anyway to
Who's
vote.
proposing to make this?
Maybe you don't wanna get under the floor either.
There's 3 signatures here so far.
Oh, I gotta go and sign it.
It's an exercise, you have one.
I'm going.
You had to call your cousin to change your tire.
He was, I had just left him at a site meeting, he had a hydraulic jack. I had to crank up, I don't know why I'm discussing this in the middle of the meeting. But I was getting paid anyway, so might as well help his boss out. Jeez. I got most of the time before he even got here.
Look what, you got the tire out?
I'm not saying, can I see it?
Yeah.
And I'm standing up. This is, this right there?
So, you want to sign this? Yeah.
Who's proposing this?
Maybe property.
This one was just done, right?
Applicant is Lady Family Trust.
So it's this one here.
Mm-hmm.
And what is-
Lot A.
what the hell is that? This is right next to the,
The new one. In
isn't
between
that
the
guy
old-
Seal Harbor?
So Lot A is the new one going between the old farmhouse and the new house.
No.
You got all the odd shaped lot, everything's on there.
Oh,
Everything over there.
oh.
45.
Mhm.
So
Mara, you're saying because we're not gonna meet again within 21 days, and this was just submitted, that we would need to be able to make some sort of decision on it?
Well, you have several options. You can consider it tonight, you can set another meeting, or you can not act on it, in which case it would be automatically approved. You would endorse it at a future meeting.
I see no problem with it.
It meets all the requirements of the law.
Can you ask them to, they've already withdraw it and then resubmit it so we can sign it properly on the 1st?
No, they're freezing the zoning. They're freezing the zoning and they're freezing the environmental requirements, Title V requirements.
Oh, before it changes?
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to approve the request from A&R.
So when's our next meeting?
The 1st.
Well, but I thought we said we were gonna possibly meet to talk about our endorsement of the sewer, not.
So you apply for an A and R now. 21 days yet.
No, it's the data application.
It's the date of application.
Freezes it.
Once again, an application put in today freezes the lots before the,
Yeah, on an A&R for 3 years, for use.
huh? And we haven't been inundated yet, huh?
Not yet, still early.
Not really.
How do you guys want to do it? You want to schedule on the meeting, or you just want to?
Motion to approve.
Yeah,
I would like
motion
that.
to approve.
I made a motion to accept it.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I would
Okay.
always prefer, just for notes, I would always prefer that we make sure that we get things done in advance, so this is the first time we've seen it.
Yeah.
Is that the same one then? Can you at least like, take a little longer time, make it look like you did something? Huh? This is it right here?
Get up and do some exercise. All right, what do we got next? We had shared residential driveway discussion, 27 Fort Pond Hill Road. Okay, anybody here for that?
Yes. Hey, John Field. So there are two.
Okay. This is the house in the end that's
Yes, it is.
never finished, right?
Correct.
Okay.
An intent to finish it out. And, I think the prospective buyers are moving back. The house was taken back by the bank over the summer. An intent to close it out, and I'm here tonight to discuss the conditions for the shared driveway permit. So those are two plans. There's the original plan that was approved in 2006, and an existing conditions plan that represents the driveway as it is today.
Which lot are we speaking of here, Joe?
The one.
Lot 8?
Exactly, lot 8, the one at the very end. Oh, right here,
I got, so it's the other way around?
yes. Old Pond Hill Road is up here.
Oh, okay. And this one over here is where the one you access from, that one that's in the middle of the little island?
It's probably,
It's a mess.
All right.
be that one right there. This lot goes right down to the road,
That lot goes to,
Newtown Road.
Lot 8 does.
Yes, when it was originally subdivided in, I think, 1996. So, the long and tortured history of it was the building permit was issued in 2005. It was discovered that that would be the fourth house on a common driveway. The work was stopped by the building inspector. In 2006, the Board of Appeals granted a handful of variances from the town code to allow the driveway to be built and shared.
think a permit was issued by the planning board. I don't have that documentation, but I think it was around 2006, 2007 that it was finally issued.
Correct, about the same time as the appeals board decision.
Yes. The building inspector granted a new permit in 2006, 2007. The house is substantially completed by 2008, but for whatever reasons, the work stopped until 2012, when the previous owner paved the driveway from the last house, which I think is 23. So the previous owner built the driveway from right about here out to the house in 2012. He installed the gutter from here and installed the pipe underneath the driveway, as was part of the requirement, but he did not go up to the road to finish, and left the existing driveway untouched. So part of the conditions were that the driveway be 14 feet wide. At its widest, it's about 13.2. So what I would propose to meet the conditions would be to excavate on either side, on both sides of the driveway, from Fort Pond Hill Road down to the first turnout, a 1 foot wide strip, and install structural gravel or graded base to make the driveway at least 14 feet wide to the first turnout, as was one of the conditions.
Where is the first turnout?
I think, the conditions, part of the conditions were that it'd be 14 feet wide to the first driveway, which would be right here.
The first driver or the last driver?
The first driveway on this side right here.
So you're calling that a turnout for the fire trucks?
That was, the second ask is to build the turnout right here, which was part of the conditions, out of gravel as well. So,
Proposed gravel turnout supposed to be right here before the driveway.
exactly.
So how,
Yes,
Proposed gravel turnout, arrow right here, this is where it's supposed to be for the fire truck.
right. If you can see it better on this one here, it's a bump out here. It wasn't included on this plan from 2006, but I included on the proposed conditions here, so.
how many feet did he pave of driveway new? In 2012, you said they repaved?
2012, he paved from right about here down to the house.
And this,
So,
this house is right here, the septic's out back, you did here,
yeah.
and again, it's only 13 feet, not 14 feet.
Well, it's 12 feet from here.
Yeah,
It's 13 feet to about 150 feet, and then it gets narrower down to about 12 and a half feet for the rest of the entire width, the entire length of the driveway.
okay.
But that's okay, that doesn't need to be changed then to the 14.
Well, and the question in front of the board is how would you like to proceed?
Well, he's proposing widen it to 14 feet, correct? That's what you're proposing from here?
Only from the street down to the first turnout. So at the end of this turnout,
Yeah.
it would be back to original width of about 12 feet.
Are there any neighbors here on this, from the street?
Just a discussion at this point, have not.
I saw people, I just wanted to make sure there was no one.
All right, so how many feet is it, John, I'm sorry, from that last house to the turnout?
It is about 600 feet.
And it's 12 feet wide. There's no water running, town water running down the line, right?
No, those are all serviced by wells, private wells.
All right, so, I don't know, there's a guy doing another house that they made him put a giant cistern back in there. And what I don't understand is 600 feet. So the truck will be backing up down there, or driving forward, or backing out of there, that fire truck? All the ways down to his,
Yes.
how big is the turnaround at the end where it shows, it looks like a little parking space, right, where he pulls into the side? Is it a drive under, is that what it is, it's a
Yes,
ranch or
it's
something?
a drive under colonial.
And then you back out into that opening, is that opening large enough for
No.
anything to turn around back there? No?
It's about 16 feet long. So
So that's wrong is, I'm sorry, but this right here looks like a, is that a,
The parking space and turnaround for the car.
This was the proposed,
this is proposed?
yes, and this is the existing. This is the existing turnaround. So there's a fairly long radius to it.
So the proposed turnout is going to be how?
600 feet away, that's the problem. It's not so much the width of the road, it's how you're gonna turn the fire truck. If he has to go down there.
So at the time, we did have a consensus from the fire department, but it was to build that, the longer term shown on the proposed, the 2006 plan. But for whatever reasons, the owner in 2012 only paved a short way down.
Can you make a turnaround down there?
It can extend about 13 feet to the edge of woods. One of the issues is that there's an order of conditions that was never signed off either. This is the 200-foot riparian line along here. So there is room to go back from the edge to that riparian line, the 200-foot riparian line of about maybe 13 and a half feet. So the total could be from this edge here back
That's
about,
30 feet?
About 26 feet. But on the other side, the uphill side, that's a relatively long radius. I could put a sketch together that shows the maximum will travel for a vehicle to stay on the highway.
What about going to the front of the, it's a drive under, so is that the retaining wall off the left back corner of it? On the
Yes.
southeast side?
I don't
That's
really care about
existing.
the width of the road, I care about the turnaround, so
Yeah, that's,
that far down, 600 feet down. The fire truck's gonna have to back all the way out if that's
I
an
don't
issue.
think it's enough. Should we actually ask the fire guys to go
Pardon?
down and check it out? Should we actually ask the fire guys to go out and check it out?
Well, they'd be happy to review the plans as well. At this point, it had been dormant for so long, bring it back to the board and see what kind of direction you'd like to
If you
provide.
can give us some sort of turnaround down towards the end, I think that's about all we can really ask for.
And once that's provided, could you submit it, have them already submit it to the fire department for review as well? I think that at that point, take a look at it, and if they weigh in and it's acceptable, then. see
We're
what we
good.
would have. So I agree that the 14 feet should be completed to the first turnout, and then if there's a turnaround put in at the end, then I think there shouldn't be an issue beyond that, as long as the fire department's willing to sign off.
Okay.
and is that turnout now in place now? I've driven down there
No.
once, and I don't, so the turnout is not there.
No, the previous owner blew right by all the conditions, among many, many others.
I
And
I think originally this was supposed to come in off of New Estate Road, not New Estate, Newtown Road, Newtown Road.
Newtown Road,
Right.
originally.
Right, and this got done this way without anybody, even the building department, even knowing about it, and then all of a sudden it's coming off of that, and then we're doing a shared driveway all of a sudden.
Well, there was an easement in the original Ellis subdivision contemplated the stream crossing. But I think once the Rivers and Stream Act was passed, it became really untenable to have first a crossing over the brook, and then what wouldn't have been a limited project because there's probably 100 feet of wetlands after that upland area. So the original subdivision had it had one 25-foot easement for access to that back lot, to Lot 8. And originally, the owner, Mr. Tierney, was counseled to build his own driveway, and he just simply would not do that.
Right.
So he was gonna have a 12-foot driveway, and the three other houses would have their own. It was just,
No, so just see what you can do for a turnaround, that's about the best we can do for it. All right. Anyone else?
What do we usually permit for shared driveways, how many are shared driveways?
But there's no,
No limit?
As, limit as far as,
how many
How many
houses?
houses are in one
well,
shared?
if, not for a maximum limit, I mean, by the
Minimum
time.
too, yeah.
Right. More than 2 homes
Hence, one
requires.
person doesn't share it with himself? Curious.
More than 2 homes requires a shared residential driveway special permit for that portion that's shared. So, up until the
And then
final,
after that,
uh,
sky's the limit.
then it's just a single house.
We're getting pretty full up on the agenda. Is there room on the December meeting for this to come back?
Yeah.
Is time of the
It's on
essence with
your
this
schedule.
job? It is. Well, it's been sitting there for what, 17 years?
All right, so we'll put you on for December, early December.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
93 Foster, is that continuing? Oh, they are here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, actually Courtney and Tom are both here to walk through all the peer review stuff when we get there.
Okay. What?
I'd say time
There's
of
nothing
the
we can
essence.
do. Supposed to come the other way, and all of a sudden snuck it in that way, and it's been abandoned, it's got dirt in the basement, and it's all, the whole hill is slid into the house. I looked at, you've seen it, right? It's a little tough.
So there are 3 signatures on this one so far? Anybody else care to sign?
I signed.
Ed and Peter and,
Did I sign it?
no, you did not. Okay, great.
Oh, you can tell my
All right, so-
it says my name there. Can you-
Why don't we start with the 93, the open space, 93 Foster Street?
7:30.
Ann, are you
we
gonna sign these?
3 minutes.
Or
I'm gonna-
Oh, sorry, which property is that?
That was the lady that she didn't vote on, but you can sign it or choose not to.
You don't want to sign it, don't sign it. All right, where are we now? Because this computer's not telling me where we are.
7:30.
We got a few minutes.
Project, please.
So when you get near the bottom of that page, is the newer information. So this is all the new stuff. Yeah, the application's simple, it's the planning, takes the engineering work.
I should bring it.
So when's December meeting is going to be December,
We haven't decided yet.
well, that's why don't we have the 3 minutes, why don't we discuss that right now? When do we want to meet in December?
We don't even have a November meeting, or do we?
November
1.
1st.
November
Yeah,
1st.
we had that discussion.
Oh.
Yeah, just don't drink too much of it.
Oh, is that Keith's
I
party?
say that out loud, I did, yeah.
Keith's is that night?
Yes, it is.
So Mara and I are going to the meeting on the 17th, the affordable housing,
16.
16th, whatever it is. If anyone else wants to
17th.
join us, I thought it was the 17th.
I thought it was 17th too.
Tuesday, November 16th is the next Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
No, not that one, the
Oh, no,
meeting
no.
in the air.
Oh,
The
yes,
lunchtime.
luncheon meeting, that's right, yes.
Yes, the 17th.
Sorry,
Yeah,
that
well, the
one.
lunch
Lunch
one,
is
yes,
lunch.
you're right. I wasn't ready for that too.
Well, one of the things that, as we're looking at December dates, one of the things that I wanted to mention, because I don't think Jamie and Peter were at the last meeting when I brought it up, but I think I would really like to have a retreat for the planning board members, and hopefully sometime in early January, so that we
A
can.
retreat?
A retreat, a longer meeting, basically.
A what? I thought you go places like up to Lennox on a retreat.
Yeah,
Is
she
that
wants
right?
us to all go skiing.
Spa, and skiing, snowmobiling.
Well, if you pay for it, Peter, sure.
You're the one who suggested it. I
She
just
wants
did
to do
something
something where we
with
all
this.
play nice with one another and we can have a frank discussion about everything before us, right?
Correct.
No, not everything before you. You can't discuss things that are before you.
Well, all right, how the board is gonna
Discuss philosophy.
philosophy and
How
how,
we will come in tune with the wants and wishes of the board of the board.
you know, how we interact with one another and have a big group hug around the fire or something.
I didn't say about anything about a group hug, but, so anyhow,
So now there's no fire, there's no Lennox, there's none of this, is that what we're?
well, we can discuss the
We're
details
having
later.
coffee someplace, it sounds like.
But wanted to bring that up as an idea, and if we do, then consider that in light of our meetings in December, January as well. So,
Well, we have to have a meeting in December, so that's. oh,
right,
I'm just trying to
but
get a
in
date
terms
for
of
December.
timing.
What are we thinking for December?
We
Why don't we
have,
have it down at your place in Florida?
That's a great idea, let's all do that.
You won't have to come back, we'll have to go down.
That's, you know, I'll make a motion to do that.
There it is.
All right,
Anna's buying the plane tickets, you got the lodging, and
We'll all go down in your
I'll pay for the
Winnebago.
golf.
We'll go down in your Winnebago.
Oh,
Bus
road
tour.
trip.
That would be nice.
Yes.
Oh, well, we have a few seconds. The last meeting I
I'm not
missed
sure
was
I would
due to
survive that ride.
What?
the last meeting I missed due to a death in my family. I really appreciate you all showing up. It was very nice and support. Thank you very much. My family appreciates it.
Sorry that it had to be under those circumstances.
Now
We'll have a little group thing together, yeah.
so Thursday the 6th?
so we have penciled in.
So Thursday, December 6th.
Is our next meeting?
That's our next meeting, yes.
Right, right. Got
We
November
on time
1st,
now?
December 6th, and then January, we have the 10th, a room on, meeting room on the 10th, but if you'd rather meet the 3rd,
Right.
then.
10th is fine with
Yeah,
me.
What do you
because
usually-
budget day will be Saturday the 5th. I'm presuming that I'm covering that,
Town meeting's the 29th, and we're all gonna go to that, right?
29th.
October 29th, we're all going to that.
Yep.
What?
October 29th, we're all going to that meeting. Town meeting.
So can we set a date for this said retreat, if you guys are all in?
Why don't we get an idea of what it's gonna be before we set a date? How
Yeah,
about
I'm not
that?
signing up for kumbaya and stuff like that, so it's.
All right, well, setting a date means it'll happen, so set that date then.
Okay, what
I'm
do
happy
you,
to work on details and.
Are we setting
Yeah.
precedents here? Have we ever had a kumbaya meeting?
26 years
Well, I
now?
think the Board of Selectmen and the school committee, as I believe, have done so, and they found it to be very helpful.
So they reel their heads again.
You know what? If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. Oh, look at the time. It's
Perfect.
7:30 now. We have,
So,
Yeah.
can we
Yes.
address that later then?
yes, can you
All right.
do a little bit more research and come up with some suggestions? And we'll run it up the flagpole. How's that? All right, 7:30. Continue public hearing, 93 Foster Street, this definitive open space subdivision and special permit. Highland Estates. You're on.
Right, is that the right one?
We sent you two today.
You can't send them today and expect us to even
Don't do that.
consider them.
Oh, good evening, Rich Harrington, engineer from Stamscott Cannery. We've received the correspondence from Green International, which I believe this is the gentleman to the right? And we have also utilized the time since the last meeting to review their second review letter. So what I'd like you to do is walk you briefly through the August 17th response letter from our office, which responds to Green's August 16th letter. And in general,
We have a few items to talk about relative to the road. First and foremost, the client would like to have a street name of Croft Circle and also rename the development to the Homes at Croft Common. There are some other aspects relative to, we did the water study, which was asked about for the fire hydrants. And we also have updated the cost estimates and et cetera. Just kind of waiting for something on the screen. I have a board in the car if I need to get it. But we have some geometry, some curvatures in the road that we adjusted. And there was a grade break geometry at the entrance that we also believe that we're in compliance with and can talk about. Bingo, here we go. So what I can do is, on the screen itself, is walk you through a few of the items. And so basically, we've numbered the lots in a clockwise manner, lots 1 through 8. And lot A is the existing house down at the bottom. Oh, it doesn't show up. We have letters B1, B2, and B3. Those are the basins. And so what you're seeing is we have the actual house footprints on there that were submitted with the application. Lot 1 is a different style than lot 2, and some are mirrored. On lot number 3, you'll see the highlighted yellow. That is an access easement to the basin B1 in the back of the yard that straddles on the open space to the left side of the plan. And so we've adjusted those easement lines per request of the consultant review. You'll also see that we have hydrant locations, which are the blue dots, pretty much in front of lot 2 and in front of lot number 8. And we've also rounded the geometry on the inside island in front of lot number 8 for a curvature of the road. Down at the entrance, next to the letter A to the left, you'll see that there's basically 70 feet from the rear corner of the existing garage to the property line to the west. So we have a small straight tangent line that you'll see that's in the middle of the road. And then to the left of that, there's the orange highlighted for about 60 to 80 feet, where we propose that 2-to-1 slope as opposed to the 4-to-1 slope, which is your rules request. So we have a small waiver request in that location. When the snow is pushed down in that area, there's still area for storage on that shoulder, but there's additional flat area before you get back down to the intersection of Foster Street where we believe that snow can be collected. So it's just an exercise of whether we did a retaining wall or just the grading, and we believe that the grading is okay for that short segment. And that's the only location along the entire road network that we're entertaining that. Next to the B3 on the bottom there, there's a little short segment of color there. That's where that talks about the changing grade. I think there's a comment from Green about it should be interpreted down near the gutter line, but on the next sheet that I'll show you that we have from your regulations, we believe it's in compliance. Along the road, Foster Street, the existing road, there's 3 utility poles that need to be set back off the edge of the existing gutter line to accommodate for the sidewalk that was requested along the frontage. As you recall, we walked this with your town engineer, and he is requiring the sidewalk to be tight to the existing gutter line. And what the casualty of that is the existing retaining wall would have to be removed, and the utility poles will be set back to allow for your snowplow for the sidewalks to have the proper width. So overall, that's the August 17th revision plan for our site development. And if there's a second sheet that we brought in, Mara, which is sheet number 7. What it basically do, it's our plan and profile. The other one. That one, yeah. Thank you. The black rectangle in the middle is, we added that, and that's from your subdivision regulations, where the green corresponds to the Forest Street green line drawn up to the top left of the plan. And then the grade break is the geometry. On the bottom left, you see the 4.14% label, and that's where the PVI is, the vertical change from the roughly 5% to the 9% coming up the hill. And that's why we provide that information to believe that we meet that requirement for the grades at the intersection. And then Green also asked us to look at the 2 curvature, like eyebrow shapes on the top of the road with 2 crest vertical curves, and we've rounded those out a longer distance to meet their concerns. And in the top right, we also added a cross-section for the road, and then we've expanded our waiver list. We do not provide the cross-sections every 50 feet up the road. So that's a waiver that we did add. And where the existing home is, you'll see there's a highlighted orange arrow heading to the prop line is what I talked about. The owners of the land would like to have the option for the existing home to be an approval not required lot. So we have a 30-foot distance for the front yard from that back corner of the garage to the right-of-way, and there's a 50-foot right-of-way. So that's why there's that short segment there of tangent line between the two curvatures. And then we have a request for the mailbox station. The mailbox station is that pink dot in the middle at the closed loop of the expanded cul-de-sac. And that area will add an accessible handicap walkway access from when someone parks their vehicle. We did talk to the postmaster, and there was also a request to have that mailbox outside the right-of-way. So we do have that outside the right-of-way on Lot 1. And then there was a request for either a loop turnaround or another extra parking space for the mail station. It's our view that that additional pavement isn't needed. This is a low-use road, it's off to the side. If someone's parked for a small period to get mail, they could still pass by. And so we can put more pavement out there if you want to accommodate the post office, but we believe it's not required. So those are pretty much the overview of the revisions that we made, and minus a couple other items I'd just like to discuss. We do have a street light at the entrance on utility pole 35. We don't have any other lighting proposed within the subdivision. They can be added if the board desires. And we had some talk about the basin at the bottom of the hill. It's terraced as we go from the gutter to the sidewalk up to the front of the home. In a future revision, we'll have a poly barrier in there to kind of protect against some of the concerns for that. And I think that's what I'd like to do is pretty much stop there and allow some additional talk from the board. Moving forward, just one more item. We've already revised our plans to address the September 27th letter from Green. We didn't submit them before the meeting just because there wasn't enough time for review. So if everything is in order, we're comfortable either closing the meeting or allowing additional time for Green to review our next plan set, and then entertain any other questions that might be on the agenda tonight from the board.
What's the slope after the 4% at the beginning?
I think it's 5%, I believe,
That's 5% from there to
and it's a
the
9%, roughly 9%.
9% after the 5.
I think so, roughly 9 and change, possibly.
Roughly, I mean,
Sorry, my reading glasses are, she could zoom in with the grades there. So I think it's 5 to maybe 9.14, it's a 4.14% difference. Right.
9.14.
Oh, it's even better, I guess. All right, so we're 5% at the entrance, and then it's 9.14% heading up past the existing home.
what's
So anyway, Tom and Courtney are here from Green, if you want them to go through.
yeah, would you
what they-
walk us quickly through it?
Sure. Just for the record, Tom Belo from Green International. We reviewed the first set of plans, submitted the letter in August, and then we reviewed the resubmission that was provided to the subdivision and provided a revised comment letter earlier this month. So I'll just give you the highlights as far as the more major outstanding comments that are still with us. So comment number 1, which seems like the applicant's now requesting a waiver for that. There were no cross-sections provided. We felt with the grading on site that and what they presented, their typical section, should be okay to not provide those cross-sections in this situation. We just requested that a waiver be submitted for, just to memorialize that. Comment number 9 was regarding the water study. We haven't reviewed that just yet. We haven't received that, but we can review that upon that being sent our way. Comment number 12 was in regards to snow storage. The applicant had just talked about that. Basically, there's a 2-to-1 side slope off to the side of the road, and the DPW director has, over the past year or so, expressed making sure that there's snow storage on the side of the road, both sides of the roadway. What they propose is really in line with the subdivision regulations, but we want to bring that to your attention, maybe get the DPW director's input. It is a short stretch, so he may be amenable to it, but I think since he's the one maintaining the road, it would be good to have his input on that. Comment number 15, again, it seems like the applicant will be addressing that in their upcoming submittal, which is revising all the unit prices in the estimate that will be used for the future bond to be Mass DOT unit prices versus RS means. Comment 18 is regarding the profile. Our main concern there is that Foster Street is crowned, and we assume that it has about a 2% cross slope on it. And with the 5% cross slope coming right in, that creates basically a 7% grade break there, which is kind of a large grade break and could present some issues both for the town while plowing and also the cars bottoming out if they're driving a little too quickly. There is guidance in the Mass DOT design guide. Certainly for a subdivision roadway with 8 houses on it, you may not need to meet the Mass DOT design guide to the T, but I think there's maybe a little room for improvement there.
What about the slope afterwards?
The 9% is within the subdivision regulations. I forget the maximum.
I think it was 10.
I think it's 10, yes. So it does fall within the regulations for this classification of roadway.
But you're not pulling a low boy up that hill.
It is on the steeper side.
No, I mean, as far as the 7% to the 2%.
Oh,
You're gonna block
correct,
off a vehicle,
correct.
you're gonna,
Correct. Certainly like some sort of low body landscaping truck that could also be
and the
be an
plows
issue.
and the trucks are gonna be blotting them out
Correct.
or highlighting.
Comment number 37 is regard to the streetlights. As the applicant said, there is a utility pole, an existing light that they're relocating. If the board wishes to have more street lighting within the subdivision, we would certainly defer to the board on that. Comment number 55, the applicant is meeting the stormwater regulations in regards to discharge off of the site, but one kind of unique aspect to this subdivision is that 2 of the basins will actually discharge to town roadways versus what is typically done with a wetland or a forested area. So when the infiltration basins, when they overflow in a high rain event, one of them would discharge to Croft Lane, or I believe that's the name of the subdivision now, and then another one would discharge down Foster Street. Now, the applicant has designed for the 100-year flood or the 100-year storm to be contained within these storms. But we just asked the applicant to maybe speak to, while the 100 years contained within these, at what point do they expect them to overtop? Certainly because we have been seeing more and more 100-year storms, as you may call them, over the years, due to climate change and whatnot. So while they're meeting the regulations, we just asked them to speak to that so the town is aware of, how often that could potentially be an issue on the roadways itself. And again, comment 56, the infiltration basin is elevated about 5 feet above Foster Street. So, and it sounds like they're going to be proposing some sort of barrier to help address that comment. We're afraid of groundwater infiltrating through the retaining wall that is along Foster Street. So, to make sure that that's infiltrating into the ground and not coming out of the retaining wall.
Will that direct the water down, further down Foster Street, down the?
No, it should, with an impervious barrier, it should then just start to keep on infiltrating down into the ground, as long as that impervious barrier gets basically below that elevation of the retaining wall. As long as that is deep enough, then that should keep the groundwater from infiltrating and from discharging out.
What's the, you've done deep hole tests at the start of the,
Yes, we have.
how far down do you hit ledge?
I don't think we hit ledge there. We have a test submitted.
It was a trick question.
Comment 67, I know this had come up on some other subdivisions, which was stormwater infrastructure within the open space. There is a small portion of one of the bases that's within the open space, so we just want to bring that to the board's attention. It's my understanding that was shown on Plnbrd subdivision plans that were approved by the board. Let's see here. The comment 67, there are infiltration chambers proposed as part of the subdivision, but they are all on private property and to be maintained by the homeowners themselves. So the DPW director has recently said to not have subsurface infiltration basins proposed in the subdivisions that their town maintains. So we want to bring that to the board's attention.
So homeowners gonna take care of these?
That's the applicant's proposal, yes.
The underground detention or underground chambers that are on each lot, and those handle the perimeter drains or,
They're like the Caltech.
right, but it's not part of the stormwater system, it's part of the,
Good roof dry wells,
Oh,
in
that's.
lawn area, catch area lawn, and driveway trenches
Okay.
on the back side of the hill where it goes off, cannot be caught by the road.
Getting further down the list, Chris Stoddard did weigh in. He did request granite curbing and cement concrete sidewalk throughout, which the applicant has addressed that and is currently proposing that. He did have also one comment about the park that's proposed in the middle, and about that being, basically he didn't want that to be a burden for the town to have to maintain that, so the applicant is setting up a homeowners association to maintain that. We do have a comment in here about maybe conditioning that that is known that it's open space and not just for the residents of this street. And also it seems like the applicant has coordinated with the postal service for the mailbox. And then there are a few waivers if you want me to go over those as well.
Please.
Most of them are mostly planned presentation. There is the distance between intersection with Mill Road, which had previously been talked about in the Plnbrd subdivision. There is a waiver for trees, the placement of street trees. They're proposing to just place them in the park that is open space parcel B. There is a waiver being requested for the maintenance berm that goes around the infiltration basins. They're proposing 6 feet. This is a waiver that the board has given on past subdivisions, but I believe it's been 8 feet on all the other subdivisions. 6 feet gets a little narrow for a truck to be able to traverse around the infiltration basins so they can maintain them. So our recommendation is to, if the board wants to provide the waiver, but maybe have those maintenance berms be a little bit wider. The applicant has requested a waiver from certifying any of the utilities, basically because they're not designing the gas lines and those sort of private utilities, but we do recommend maybe the board requires a waiver on the water lines and the drain lines that the applicant would be designing. There is still a waiver, it looks like, for the hot mix asphalt sidewalk, but I believe the applicant has indicated they'll be removing that. And I think that pretty much covers our review letter and the outstanding comments.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
As far as the trees, putting the trees inside the open space parcel B, I don't agree with that. It's good.
You want them on each lot like they're normally done?
Yeah.
I think we do. All those they are shown along the entire route. The dots on the plan, they are on there.
There's more dots on there than Kellogg's has cornflakes, so which one do you want to pick out for a tree, and let me know.
They're spaced in the shoulders every 40 to 50 feet on the plan.
Yeah, you see it?
I see all that.
Well, that's-
The dots, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking.
All right, so we
The
have the
laser
trees.
doesn't, the TV doesn't hit the laser. Oh, okay, it was right in there. So each dot there. And then they are around the,
I don't see your dot, so I'm not be damned if I want to see the one that's up there. Can you see the red dot when he's spraying?
No, it's not that.
No,
So they-
Don't worry, it's not-
they are-
they're-
they are shown on the
they show
plans.
you.
Right, so they are showing entirely on the entire road network, so I'm not sure.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I just couldn't.
No, not a problem at all.
Jamie, do you have any questions or concerns?
Not this time.
Ed?
No, this time, I think the recommendation by our consultant to go from 6 to 8 on top of the detention basins. For maintenance purposes, going from 6 to 8 feet for the detention basins, for equipment purposes.
And so, right, so we do have the 15 feet on the back on lot 1 and 2 for B1. B2 has access from the road and sidewalk system. And then the shoulder itself is on the lower right-hand corner, the southeast, so you wouldn't access that 6-foot wide there on the back of the property line. So access is above the B2 label. And then B3, we have access along the entire sidewalk, driveway for Lot A above it. And so the berm is on the lower side between the B3 and right down there, so you wouldn't be driving along that portion. So that's, you do have 8 feet where the under storm event is, then we give a foot of freeboard, so we pretty much have actually about 12 feet where the water would be, and then the 6-foot flat. And so we could, ultimately, we could do that if we need to. So it's, but we feel like that's.
Any chance we can pull this one in?
That on the left side, not towards the right, off the property line, right, that 15 is somewhat excessive. We could pull that in so that you'd have a flat area along the stone wall. So that's, so we did, where we could provide it, we did.
That's the part in the open space.
Right. And then, as you recall, this was a regular subdivision, so that just would have been an easement on a lot. The open space allows a better configuration for the road and pulling the houses away from the abutters, so. So there's some public benefit that's unique and specific to the site for that.
Are you gonna try and keep the stone walls intact, or what you can work around?
Along the perimeter, yes. We cannot along the frontage because of the sidewalk, and then there might be some smaller interior walls. Between lot 1 and 2, there's a segment of wall where we match the property, the common lot line along the stone wall, and so a good amount of that could remain.
And-
So, this is more a question for our board, but what is the precedent around creating HOAs and having them be responsible for the park area or the little common area? Do we have precedent for that in other
Homeowners
developments?
Association to maintain it, sure.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, and so that's pretty typical then. And has it worked out well?
I don't know of any that would have had any issues.
No issues?
No, I got a call the other direction, a fairly new subdivision, and why isn't the town maintaining the cul-de-sac? Well, because the highway department doesn't have funds to maintain the plantings inside of a cul-de-sac. So I would say this is an extension of that,
So-
where it's.
So it works really well, then, to be able to have the HOA take care of it. Okay.
Yeah, the one up on, off of Wickham Ave is a perfect example. The homeowners take care of all of that. There's all plantings in the circle there.
Yeah, I was thinking like Sleigh Lane is another one with a little space there. Okay.
Are you, we're okay?
Yeah.
I have a question about the open space. I know it was a toss-up between the conventional and the open space, and it made a little more sense because you squeeze the houses in, you put a smaller roadway in. And you have a bit of a buffer for all the residents, but it's not really open space for the town to enjoy. It's more of a buffer. And this thing in the middle, the park in the middle, is not really open space. I mean, I understand why we did the open space. I just, I would like to see, I always like to see usable and valuable open space. And not to say this isn't valuable to the residents as a buffer, but that's all it really is. It's not really open, it's not really an open space plan. And having been on the board, yeah, I know you know where I'm going. Long enough that some of the projects we've done before, we've asked for a donation to help fund actual purchasing of open space. So I just want to throw that out there. Like I said, I know we both worked together thinking the open space was best for the project and for the residents around, but it's not, in my mind, it's not truly an open space project.
And you've already gone on record on that in the preliminary plan. There was a good discussion back and forth between yourself and a former board member. You're right, the main thing was to allow the road network the way it is in the housing. And then the open space would stay private with the homeowners association. And, right, it's a smaller piece of land, so it just meets the qualifications of 10 acres for the open space. So it's not like the larger ones that you do see.
So I would feel more comfortable if there was some sort of, if you want to talk to the developer to see if there's any way that he would think about possibly funding some money to give to the town for purchasing of open space. That's all I'm asking. I mean, your open space is more buffers than true open space, that's all. So maybe you can ask and we can address that at the next meeting. Does it, you know, it's not of use for the whole town, it's more of a buffer, so. You're right, my theme hasn't changed, I guess, yeah, I forgot it.
No, and we came in with the regular conventional, and then we said people
It makes
talked
more
about-
sense to do the open space, I'm
Right.
just saying that in the past, it's advantageous to you because it's less roadway, you're saving money on the roadway too, and it's helping the residents out because you're pulling the houses away. I'm just, from a true open space, it's not really open space that anyone in the town, other than the 8 people that live there, are gonna be in the park, that's about it. There's no trails, it doesn't connect to anything, it's narrow open space. And so, that's all I'm asking.
I'll convey the message.
Please, thank you. Anybody else have anything else?
No, at this time.
Do you want to close it? Do you want to continue it and vote conditions on the next, or?
Well, we need to back check by Green on
Right, that's
these
the new submission.
final changes.
So do you want to keep it open until?
Do you
Sure.
have enough direction for?
I think if you keep it open, we'll
And then you can communicate, make a motion to continue to December meeting.
December? We don't want to, November, we want to try to,
Well, November agenda's already full, I believe.
According to your earlier statement, it's packed.
can you wait till December, or is it?
if that's what's available, that's,
Is it packed, absolutely packed?
Well, I'm guessing we're having most of these continue, and then there's at least one new application for special permit.
We've got Gray Farm coming in.
That's December.
It's up to you guys.
It makes sense to put them on for November if we can.
Sure, I'm okay with it.
Is there anyone from the audience for this who wants to speak before I move on? I see a lot of people, I just want to make sure. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious.
Name, please,
I don't
for
know
Mark.
a lot about this, but I was just curious.
Name
about-
for Marvin, please.
Kathy Harris.
Okay, that's good, that works.
So I'm at 185 Mill. So I'm just curious about the open space. Are you suggesting that they don't have the open space around the border?
No, I'm suggesting that they have the border, but it's not true open space in the sense of the subdivisions we've done before, where it's large contiguous parcels that people can walk. It's more of a buffer than anything else, and I'd like them to try, if they can see it within their heart, to donate money so that we can use it to purchase more usable open space, like we've done in the past, the Morrison property, the Frost Wickham, a lot of properties that we've gotten donations for more open space. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. My second question was just the stone wall in the front of Wilkins' property. Did you say that's coming down?
yes.
Is that act kind of as a retaining wall a little bit?
There will be a retaining wall installed in this location for the retention.
It's all
pond here.
granite, right?
Yeah,
Big
then there's
granite
gonna- and then
stones.
there's gonna be
Are you gonna
a new
rebuild,
sidewalk.
are you gonna rebuild it with the same granite?
What we're doing is, it's sidewalk, grass slope, and we're putting a modular wall on the inside of the basin to
So the
create.
granite goes away, the big
That'll be
granite?
probably utilized on site.
Okay.
So it will be granite?
No, it'd
No.
be grass.
Retain.
They're gonna build.
You won't
a
see it,
slope.
it'll be a grass berm, and then we'd have a different wall system on the inside that won't be visible from the public.
Oh,
way.
I see. Okay.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, sir, and I opened it.
Chris Mountain, 104 Foster Street. After hearing about the infiltration basins overflowing with the 100-year storm. I live at 104, and I would just speak for the residents towards Mill Lane that I would be very concerned about how often that does overflow. So I just ask that, as the representative from Green said, that they look into that further and get that information on when it's expected, or how often it would be
It's
expected.
gonna be all downgraded of that, yeah.
We're required to design and contain and control the 100-year storm event, which we've done. And so we meet the requirements to philosophize or try to guess of what would happen to make it go over isn't the typical standard that anyone follows for any subdivision in town. So what we do is, and it's an emergency overflow that allows it to convey downhill in a safe manner in accordance with the rules. So I think that's all we can provide for that. You know, should we be expected to provide?
Thanks.
Actually, do you have another question?
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Kyle Maxfield, 181 Mill Road. I was just curious on impact of the schedule with the continuation. Is there any sort of timeline on the work?
When do you, early spring, I would?
Again,
Yeah.
once we get the paperwork in hand, then that'll determine it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, the other issue that I had the last time is that I have a tree on the back of my property, and so I was concerned about the septic system that's going in. And is it gonna affect the roots of the tree? And I think you said to me something like, my system is closer to the tree than the system that's going in. But that didn't really answer my question. I just really wanna know, is the new septic system gonna impact the roots of that large tree in the back of the property?
Between the meetings, we'll go out and look at it and provide some feedback on that in more detail.
All right, so we're,
How far is the septic from the lot line, her lot line in particular?
The grading is off the minimum required. It's probably 20 or 30 feet away. And,
How far is the tree from your lot line there?
It's on the line.
and
So for the most part, you're at least 30 feet away from it, from her septic?
I believe so, and I think
Your
it's
septic from her tree?
correct.
So I had one follow-up question. So on the draft construction management plan, item G talks about communications with neighborhood liaison or committee, and it says not applicable. So one of the things that I would highly recommend is having some sort of neighborhood liaison if there are going to be ongoing questions, just so that they're answered with appropriate feedback directly from residents, so that you have that information to go off of, and it doesn't preclude you from moving forward. That way you address any particular issues that you have. So I would highly suggest in your construction management plan, you revisit that.
Certainly.
Thank you.
okay, so we're gonna continue this till
November 1?
November 1. We'll squeeze you in somewhere. Good. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
All right, so we have an 8:30. We're close to the on-schedule. Continue public hearing 244, so does that continue?
Okay. Yes, it does. I'm just gonna jump ahead for a minute.
Okay.
We've got 151 Taylor Street, the commercial, later on in the evening.
Mhm.
Are you gonna want Green to weigh in on that as well?
Oh, yeah, we have the 8 o'clock. I forgot Jones Meadow first. Yeah.
8:45.
Yeah. Do you want to,
I mean, it's not even,
so we still have the 8 o'clock, so,
8:30,
yeah.
and then 8:45, the 151 Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, Green's still here. You're staying for the 8:45, correct?
Yeah, Taylor Street.
Okay.
Okay, just make sure that you wanted them here before we made the mistake.
All right, so we have an 8 o'clock, continue public hearing about Jones Meadow, Spectacle Pond Road, Cricket Lane. Okay.
Thank you. My name's Greg Roy with Ducharme and Dillis, and we've made a plan revision that we've submitted to you a few weeks ago, and a fairly significant change to the layout. But I thought I'd just start with, where we were, but I went back a little bit even further, and I'm standing in the middle of everybody's on the side here. But just, this is what we had last winter. This is the initial concept that we presented to the planning board, that the Canards presented to the planning board during the informal time when we were first kind of scoping this out, and had the loop road with a 31 unit configuration. The filing that we made earlier this year, when we finally made the formal filing, it looked very similar, but we had reduced it to 30 units. We still had the loop configuration, and this is where we were a month ago. This is what we have been presenting for the summer months, the last several meetings. As a result of the feedback we got from, I think, the board, the butters, the peer review comments that we had from Ms. Barrett and Green Group, the Kennards have come up with a new layout. We submitted this plan, which we're here to discuss tonight, and I'm just going to go over it very briefly. Steve has a response to Ms. Barrett's review comment that he'd like to go over, but I just wanted to go over the highlights of this, and we're very interested to hear the board's feedback. I guess I'll preface this by saying that you instructed us to meet with the abutters last time we were here, which the Kennards did do. They presented this plan to the abutters. I wasn't there, but you were there. So we've gone from 30 units down to 19. We're still in the senior residential arena. The road loop has changed, so we've gone from a wider loop down to a single cul-de-sac configuration. The road length is less than 750 feet. It's about between 700 and 750. I can't remember the exact number. We would still have the on-site sewage disposal systems. We're still proposing a subdivision with a public road configuration. So each unit would be on its own lot. One of the biggest changes, I think, is, other than the reduction in the density, is the open space. So in the dark green is what we're proposing for open space. We have just about 40% open space, excluding the buffers that we have. So we have a large parcel of open space that we're showing in the plan, and it's in excess of your requirement by a fairly good margin. The reduction in the density really allowed for that to happen. And we've also added some parking areas to the plan. We had already agreed to provide some parking in our last project in this location, so we've shown that now on the plan, what that would look like. We've also added an additional bay of parking here, and Steve's going to get into this a little bit more, but for access to this open space here, and also for some visitor parking throughout the development. We've done some things to lengthen the driveways, widen the driveways for visibility and parking in response to some of the feedback. And Steve, I think I'll pass it off to you because Steve has a letter here that he'd like to read in response to some of the specific details that we received specifically in Ms. Barrett's review. So we'll turn it over to Steve.
Okay.
Sure.
So this letter was written a couple of days ago in response to Judy Barrett's peer review. I don't know if the board had an opportunity to actually read through it. I know you only got it a few days ago. But so throughout the past 6 months, we have listened to and participated in discussions with the Planning Board, Board of Selectmen, abutting neighbors, and citizens of the town of Littleton, respectfully. On September 11th, 2018, R.D. Kennard Homes, who is the developer, received feedback from Barrett Planning Group pertaining to the application of Jones Meadow Senior Residential Development and the proposed construction of 30 cottage-style dwellings on approximately 12 acres. We have considered all parties' views and opinions while drafting a modified subdivision plan and application, which will be reviewed by the Planning Board today, October 4th. The most significant of the modifications is a reduction of density to 19 homes and shortening of the road by 50%. We feel strongly that the plan before you satisfies the requirements of the SRD bylaw and reflects the culmination of feedback received during the past 6 months. Below is our responses to Judy Barrett's concerns, opinions, and interpretations of the senior housing residential bylaw as it relates to the previous proposal to build 30 cottage-style dwellings at Jones Meadow. So what I'm going to do is just read Judy's comments, and then I will provide a response as to how the modified plan addresses those comments. So Judy states, the open space appears to function more as a buffer between the SRD and neighboring properties than as a planned amenity for the SRD's residents. The revised plan eliminates 11 dwellings for a total of 19. The reduced density increases open space to more than 40% of the total lot area. That 40% calculation excludes the buffer along Cricket Lane and the abutters to the north. There is no wetlands on the property, and therefore the entire open space tract is available to the neighborhood and the town of Littleton to enjoy. The accessibility to the open space has also been improved by the addition of 2 parking lots totaling 11 spaces, including 2 handicapped. Please note that all drainage has been removed from any open space. Judy's comment number 2. The garages protrude from the front building line, though for some of the proposed building types, the protrusion is softened by the front porch entry. Our response is that all homes will have a front porch protecting the walkways of the 0-step entrance from weather. The combination of the front porch and/or bedroom number 2 bump out will soften the look of the front-facing garage as shown on the elevations of the proposed units. Comment number 3, the site layout is not ideal. The road has closely cut curb cuts, which can compromise the safety of walking seniors. There is 1 sidewalk on the plan. The driveways are quite short, and there is potential for parked cars to protrude into the walkway area. Our response and modifications. The dimensions of the driveways to each unit have been increased to 25 feet in length and 22 feet in width. This eliminates the potential of a parked car protruding into the walkway area. Sidewalks have been included on both sides of the proposed roadway. A parking area with handicapped accessibility has been added at the front of the site. This area could be used as a bus stop, visitor parking, and as parking for conservation land at Whitetail Woods. Additionally, a second parking area with handicapped accessibility has been added to the frontage of the proposed open space from the roadway. Judy's comment number 4. A mix of housing types and shared access to the road for at least some of the structures could achieve the same number of units, reduce the project's footprint on the site, and open opportunities to make open space a more defining feature of the development than the 30-lot plan contemplates. We recommend the applicant consider layout modifications to better align the project with the industry standards for visitability and livability. Our response is that the project's overall footprint has been reduced from 30 units to 19 units, and the road coverage is nearly cut in half from a previous 1,430 lineal feet to 730 lineal feet, which of course reduces the impervious surface. As far as open space improvements, we had already mentioned that. And in terms of the mix of housing types, the developer has a host community agreement with the Board of Selectmen to build cottage-style dwellings only, and we cannot provide a mix of housing types. And I also want to mention that the majority of feedback from the abutters was that they do not prefer a mix of housing types. Judy's comment number 5. If the applicant were to provide more details about energy efficiency in the proposed dwellings, we would be happy to review it. And our response is that all homes will include advanced comfort system technology, optimum-sized comfort system, optimum flow delivery system, high-efficiency water heater, Energy Star-rated appliances, Energy Star-rated windows and doors, advanced lighting technology, and water-saving plumbing fixtures. Prior to the occupancy, all homes will have an energy audit and receive a home energy score, as well as meet or exceed the Massachusetts State Home Performance Assessment. Judy's comment number 6. While none of the proposed homes are very close to the property line, part of what drives the 6 units toward the rear of the site closer to the abutters on Cricket Lane is the size of the loop in the subdivision road. The loop is wide enough to enable 7 homes to be built in the center of the site layout. Reducing the number of units in the project could liberate the roadway from the looped design of the plan. This may result in fewer units, but a deeper buffer along the rear perimeter. The proposed plan meets the ZBL's minimum dimensional requirements, but it could be reconceived to fit better within the surrounding lower density neighborhood. So our response to that is that the new plan proposes a reduced density from 30 homes to 19 homes on 12 acres. Now, this is an important fact. According to our research, there is 1 house on Cricket Lane that sits on 5 acres. Other than that, the remaining 23 houses on Cricket Lane sit on a total of approximately 12.24 acres. The density of Jones Meadow is consistent and less than that of the abutting Cricket Lane neighborhood. The roadway has also been liberated, as we discussed, from 1430 lineal feet to 730. The looped design has been removed in its entirety, and the 7 homes that were previously proposed inside the loop have been eliminated. Judy's comment number 7. The Jones Meadow project does not appear to have any designated outdoor recreation or gathering areas. There are open space trails on nearby conservation land. We do not know if the trails are accessible. Our response is that the Whitetail Woods Conservation Trails are accessible from the Jones Meadow neighborhood. Parking spaces for those trails, access to the open space, and gathering areas have been added inside of the Jones Meadow neighborhood. Judy's comment number 8, and this is paraphrased. We believe that reconceiving this development a mixed residential project, e.g. with a mix of single-family and duplex units or small multi-unit structures, could result in a more efficient layout and somewhat smaller footprint, and a road design with fewer curb cuts. Our response is outside of building garden-style, duplex, or multiple-level structures, it is our understanding that seniors prefer independent, single-level living. Jones Meadow accomplishes this. The protruding garages detract from the attractiveness of the cottages. Contrary to opinion of protruding garages, they are used throughout the United States in today's architecture. And we had also discussed about the front porches and the bump outs being in line with the front of the garages. Judy's comment number 10, the proposed homes appear to be designed for empty nesters and retirees. The dictionary defines a senior citizen as a person over the age of 65. The term applies to the age at which pensions, Social Security, or medical benefits for the elderly become available. Jones Meadow is an age-targeted community. We do not disagree that the homes are designed for empty nesters and retirees, but we also believe they are designed for those in their golden and twilight years. Judy's comment number 11. We do not know what kind of sale prices the developer has in mind. Our response to that is the developer does not have the ability to control the market, and 60-year-old 2 to 3 bedroom ranch-style homes in Littleton sold for an average of $283 per square foot over the past 12 months. We anticipate that Jones Meadow new construction sales prices to be approximately 10% higher based on a 1,700 square foot home. Judy's comment number 12. It may be that the town would obtain more benefits for seniors by accepting a fee in lieu for the Housing Trust Fund to invest in senior housing in another potentially better location. Our response is that the applicant is agreeable to paying a fee in lieu of the affordable units. All monies should be contributed to the Senior Housing Trust Fund. Judy's comment number 13. Because the site is in a relatively remote part of Littleton, we note that it could be more suitable for a senior housing use, such as an assisted living residence. Our response is that the developer has a host community agreement with the Board of Selectmen to build cottage-style dwellings only. An assisted living facility would not be consistent with the neighborhood, and we have confirmed with the abutters that that is not their preference. Judy's comment number 14. The board will want to consider whether the Jones Meadow SRD meets enough social and community needs to justify awarding the maximum allowable density under the bylaw. Our response is the maximum allowable density according to the SRD bylaw is 4 cottage-style dwellings per acre. The modified Jones Meadow application process The modified Jones Meadow application proposes approximately 1.5 cottage-style dwellings per acre. Maintaining, repairing, and replacement of on-site amenities is expensive, and the goal is to keep the seniors' monthly payments as low as possible. Judy's comment number 15. The issues associated with the lotting plan as described above reduces the site's safety for pedestrian and bicycle use due to the prevalence of curb cuts serving individual homes. At a minimum, the site needs an uninterrupted and accessible sidewalk to accommodate seniors safely. A different layout could reduce the number of curb cuts and create a space that better serves both people and cars. Our response is that sidewalks have been added on both sides of the roadway to increase the safety for walking seniors. The number of curb cuts has been reduced from 30 to 21. The driveways have been mirrored to improve walkability on the sidewalks as well. Judy's comment number 16, and we only have one more after this, is we recommend that the applicant consider introducing more than one housing type and offering some types of services to residents, perhaps transportation. Since the project attempts to maximize the number of units allowed under the bylaw, every effort should be made to ensure that it provides the maximum community benefits too. Our response is similar to what we had said in terms to the mixed housing, is the host community agreement. And in response to maximum density, we are just echoing that the maximum density is 4 cottage-style dwellings per acre, and our modified application is for 1.5 cottage-style dwellings per acre. Senior transportation arrangements can be made via the Council on Aging, and we have improved parking to accommodate bus pickup and drop-off. And last but not least, Judy's comment number 17 is in regards to inclusionary zoning and attaching a 55-plus deeded age restriction to the development. And our response is that the applicant welcomes the direction of the planning board on any 55-plus deed restrictions.
And I'll just say that I know it's a lot to digest, but I didn't want to ignore the comments we received from Green either. It's just that our intention was to put before you a plan and where it was a pretty significant change from what we proposed before. We really wanted to have the opportunity to gauge your feedback, and we do anticipate rounding out the full plan set and responding formally back to Green in the future plan revision.
So does the board have any questions right now? So we've gone from a 30-unit senior residential to a 19 empty nester with more open space. Ann and I have seen it. We sat in with the Kennards and the residents to discuss this. I'm not saying I'm not going to speak for the residents, but at least it was a productive meeting. So I'll open up the board to ask any questions right now.
So, first of all, I just want to commend you guys for taking the time to go back to the residents, and I want to commend the residents and the abutters for taking the time to meet with the developer. I'm grateful to all of you for taking the time to do this. I think your discussion points and your responses are eloquent, to say the least, and more than adequate. I think you addressed a lot of the concerns that were expressed by this board, by the abutters, and by our consultant. I don't know that we're there yet, but I think we're a lot closer than we were the last time you were before us. I think everybody here knows that I am hopeful that we can get a senior residential development in our town. I don't know if people understand the housing crisis that's occurring in the state, let alone in our town. My biggest concern would be the age restriction of the 55 and older, and the only reason I say that is I wouldn't want to eliminate disabled veterans, municipal employees on lower income. So I would still hope that they would have the ability. Our teachers are driving from too far away. Our firefighters are 4 or 5 towns away now from getting here. Our police officers, again, the situation. So the DPW workers, when they got to come in and plow, if they're driving from Orange so they can come plow the streets in Littleton, they're putting their life at risk to be here. So that would be my biggest concern, would be the age restriction. Outside of that, I think that, I've said my piece. Thank you.
Peter? Do you have any?
I wasn't ready to go yet. I thought I'd go later on in the review process, if you don't mind.
Jamie?
I like seeing the open space piece, and I really like that you have taken into consideration folks that want to enjoy it and might have to drive from across town or left some parking there and a big tract of land so they don't have to cut down this little path between 2 lots to get there. It is a beautiful piece of property, and I hate to have seen it go, but such is life. So I like this a lot better myself, and having Whitetail across the street, and there is just that little cutoff. Sometimes you see cars jammed right in there trying to access that little piece of wooded lot. So the parking spots even towards the front, I just think it's a nice idea. I like it.
Thank you. Anna?
I think I'll go after Peter.
Well, I guess I'm up next then. I like that it's reduced down to 19. I said all along there could be 10 conventional houses out there. This is not as big a stretch from 10 to 19, given what they could actually conventionally build out there, big McMansions out there. I'm going to repeat the same thing I repeated all of them. I'm still concerned about price point. We started this to get this. We've got to remember, this is seniors. I understand your concern about disabled people. I agree they should be allowed and things like that. But we're going down this road for seniors. That's what this is all about. Not just empty nest, just people that can try to afford it. And when we started this, the density was going to drive it. Was going to drive the price down. At 1,700 square feet, at $320,000, $320 a square foot, you're at over $600,000 for a house. That's not my idea of empty nester or affordable housing for the seniors. Having said that, I think it's a place to start. The other thing is, we're doing this to build housing for the seniors. I don't like the idea of waiving the affordable units for money. We need units.
Well, I disagree, because the affordable units for money goes into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which allows us to rent, buy, or build as a town.
It makes more sense to have them already in your hand. Why, we already have $400,000.
I think that I think Harvey would like to weigh in on that as well, right? At
We
some
don't-
point? I would encourage that conversation to be had with the chairman of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
We don't have any affordable housing now. The money does us no good. The 400,000 sitting in the bank doesn't do the seniors who have been waiting for 10 years to get an affordable unit.
Well,
It's
if
only
you keep
two.
kicking it down the road, we're not gonna get any money
I'm not
or
trying
any
to kick it
developments.
down the road. I'm trying to get something that makes sense, that works. That's all I'm trying to do. I love the
So-
open space.
So then we should ask them to build mobile homes here, which would be affordable. I don't think the abutters would want that.
I didn't say that. I think
That's how you get affordability.
we get affordability through density, and we've given them a higher density, smaller units.
We just asked them to cut their density in
And they
half.
did, and they did a great job at cutting.
But now you want it
density in half.
affordable again.
I still want it affordable, yeah. I'm sorry, that's what this is all about. It's about
I
seniors,
don't know if
baby.
anybody's been watching the news, but the mayor's compact for the greater Boston area, they're pushing for 17.5% affordable units with any density that they approve. So we had them pushed up to 20.
And now they're
that
down
still
to
wasn't
10.
good.
No, it
And
wasn't. 20 was
Now they're gonna
good.
pay into an affordable housing trust fund.
I don't think it should go into affordable housing trust fund. I think they should build the units and the town gets 2 units. That's all I'm trying to say about that. We can still defer about what what the price point should be. I still think it should be lower. It should be 1,700 square foot. There should be 1,000 square footers, 1,500. There should be a mix of all different sizes at all different price points. That's all I'm trying to say. I like the fact that they've reduced it down. I just like something a little more affordable for the seniors. Most of the seniors that have come to this meeting have said they can't afford these houses, so who are we building it for? We're supposed to be building it for the people that live in the town of Littleton, not the people that live in Lexington or Concord or something else to afford to come to Littleton because they can't afford their own towns. It's gotta be for people who live here now. That's all I'm trying to say. That's my piece. Oh, and one other thing, am I making you sick?
No.
Yes, and the last part is the amenities that go with it. Understandable, this is a 10-acre spot, it's a small piece. Walking paths and open space are not the only amenities we need in this town of Littleton. When we envisioned doing the bylaw, I thought we envisioned bigger properties where you'd be able to do more amenities for the residents. This might suggest that maybe we come up with, in lieu of all the amenities that should go on here, a place for them to, for the seniors to meet and congregate and everything else like that, that maybe we come up with an idea of maybe, in lieu of that, a fee for each house that's built to go into a fund so that we can build this, eventually at some point, build a senior center. That I'd be in favor of banking the money for that, for a senior center, but then maybe that's something we could consider here because there's no amenities that are other than the open space. That's the only thing I'm throwing out there, that maybe we should talk about that. Anyway, all right, I'm done with my dime. Peter?
I don't know whether you're on a merry-go-round, swing set, or a teeter-totter. I don't know which one you ride, which your favorite mode of transportation is, because we have Sherry, Mrs. Barrett?
Judy?
Judy, there it is. And she tells us what we need to do to get a builder to come in here, and we need the density, and we need this, and we need that. And then her report comes back and denounces everything that she proposed us to do in order to get somebody to come in and propose a building for our elderly. We had, how many, we had 4 houses, or 6 houses were affordable on the lot?
6. We were offering 6.
We had 6 affordable houses beforehand. Okay? And there was some pushback, I understand, about the residents, they got used to seeing open fields, and, you know, that's all grand and glorious, but in the same instance, we're trying to do something for the elderly and affordable for Littleton. We had 6 affordable houses for Littleton. Now we have 2, okay? And we lost, how many houses did we reduce it by, 11?
Correct.
11 houses. We gave up 11 houses to give up 4 affordable units. And now you turn around and you say you want to, you know, have the builder produce money for a senior center, and, well, that's all well and good in some respects, but affordability in Littleton, $600,000. That's what these places are going. Actually, the real number is 559, 800. That's a lot of money.
It's,
So we just gave away 4 houses in order to give away 11 houses. And those were affordable. And what's that, $178,000? Or 278?
187.
187.
what are you looking at me for? I'm not the one.
Because you're the one who started out with, down one path and he keeps, and you go back and forth. Well, I'd like to see this, I'd like to see that, but then again, I like this and I don't like that. We can't have it both ways, and we're not here to make him money or anybody else who proposes these things. We're here to do something for the elderly. And the best thing we had going was the 30 houses and 6 affordable units.
Mhm.
That's what we had.
Okay, well, that's not.
And now we ain't got squat. We got 2. That
Okay.
doesn't even meet the 20% or whatever the. I'm disappointed in where this has gone. What they proposed, I think is fantastic. Everything they propose is great. There's a big curve around the thing, that the neighbors that are there, though they're not getting to see their field, well, then 34 neighbors should have come up with 20 grand each and they could have bought the place or whatever the hell it was. But now here we are. This is where we're at, and honestly, I disagree completely with how you propose one thing and then, dang,
What am I changing?
you're changing your attitude about what they're proposing and what you're giving to them and what you want more out of it.
I said this was fine. I have no problem with this at
But
all.
why did we pay all this money to have a proposal given to the town to make it affordable units? We get somebody show up, we're getting 6, and then the town decides they're not gonna give them any of it? I don't know who's running the show here, I really don't.
Our consultant came back and said it wasn't really senior affordable housing, it's empty nester. That's what she came back with. She came back, she gave us that, okay?
Well, I think-
Mr. Canard came back with 19, which is a compromise between what he wants and what the neighbors want.
That's
And I think
great.
that's
And-
great.
It is great, but why do you keep beating them on for?
I'm not beating them at all, I'm
I think
saying,
we're gonna go back and watch the tape and see
I'm
what
saying
Barry says.
I want them to build the 2 units so that we get them. Okay, so not the money, we don't need the money, we need the units. We need people to be able to move in as soon as this is built. That's one thing. And the only other thing I suggested is that there's no amenities here. It's supposed to have amenities. And all I'm saying is, we're setting precedent. This is the first
So how do you
one.
build amenities when you don't get the profit from a larger project?
You're getting the profit on the increased density. Yeah, they're still building.
1.5.
They're still building 9 more houses than they could conventionally build. That's got to be worth something. You're a builder, you know that people make, how they
I'm not
make
a
money.
builder, I'm a
All right,
carpenter.
all right, whatever. All I'm asking is maybe they kick in a little, I'm just suggesting it. I'm not saying it's etched in stone. All I'm saying is there's no amenities here. There's nothing. There's open space, which is what there's supposed to be. There's nothing for them. There's no congregation. There's nothing. Maybe we start a kitty. This is the first one. This is the first one out of the box. What we do for this one, we do for everybody else. Maybe $1,000 a house, $2,000,
This
whatever.
is what we do to them. I don't think anybody else wants to come to town what we've done to them.
All I'm saying is, there's supposed to be amenities that go with it. Not
Can I
ju-
say something?
Can I just finish with Mr. Scott at first? I know who you are. All I'm saying is, I think there should be an amenity that goes with it other than a walking trail. And if you can't put it on the property, we should make it as part of the procedure that from now on, anybody that proposes on a small one, if you get somebody on 30, 40 acres who can build an amenity center, mixed use, everything else that we wanted in the original proposal that we wanted, can do it, then fine, they do it. If they can't, then maybe they should put some money into a kitty.
We already take money for every sale that goes through the town of Littleton now. We take money, it goes into the CPC fund.
No, that's tax money. That has nothing to do with that. That's one.
What is it when you take a fee from somebody?
That's different.
That's not a tax?
That's not a tax. That's part of the amenity that goes with
Put
it.
lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig.
That's part of the amenity. These projects are supposed to have amenities for the seniors to age in place. There's nothing there for them to age in place. You know, nothing. You move in here, what do you got? Where do you want to meet your friends? There's no place to meet. There's no senior center, there's nothing. And I'm not saying they should build it because it's a small project that doesn't have the finances to do it. So maybe starting forward, we put a fund together to start collecting money to at least start building or put money aside to build a senior amenity center that we don't have in this town right now. That's all. That's my only, I haven't changed, it hasn't got any different. 19, I can live with 19, I think 19 is a great compromise between what he wants and what the neighbors want. You're the one who keeps saying I keep changing my
I've heard you say
mind.
the same thing.
Anyone
You're gonna
else?
say something
Deanna?
different.
So I'd like to thank everybody here as well for trying to work together and
Handouts.
figure this out. So I'm going to repeat a little bit of what Mark said, but in a slightly different way. So what I've handed out to everybody is the page from the master plan, because one of the decision points for this particular bylaw is around whether it meets the need, or excuse me, whether it meets the goals of the master plan. The housing goal says to encourage a variety of housing that meets the needs of different age groups and is affordable to people of different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I'm just going to take it a little bit at a time. A variety of housing. We have a variety of housing in terms of different sizes from 1,300 up to 1,700. I would propose that it should actually be even lower than that in terms of sizing, all the way down to 800 square feet to maybe meet the needs of people who are in a lower income bracket. The needs of different age groups, we're talking about seniors, and is affordable. Affordable. So mixed income in terms of most any neighborhood in Littleton and a lot of communities, you have mixed incomes. You have a smaller house, you might have a medium-sized house, you might have a large house. You have people in different income categories who can afford these different houses. So when I look at this, it says affordable to people of different socioeconomic backgrounds. Honestly, guys, except for the two homes, we're meeting the needs of folks in higher income brackets. Because this is all this is all above 150% of AMI. It's just that simple, so let's call a spade a spade. You guys are meeting the needs of higher income people, okay? We are not meeting the needs of folks in the middle income or lower income, okay? And then finally, under recommendation number 1 for housing, it says focus on allowing greater density in places where it makes sense to intensify land use. Location, I understand that you addressed it in your documentation or your response. It's not considered a best location for seniors based on other information from the Littleton Housing Production Plan to other sources that talk about what's good for seniors. So I fully understand that senior housing is needed. And by the definition, I understand where you're getting at, that, yeah, this meets senior needs, but you have to hear what I'm saying. This is meeting the needs of higher income seniors who can meet and pay for the market rate. And we're going to be getting 2 homes, or the value of two homes, to be able to put into our trust, or 2 homes that get built out, still to be determined. Is there anything more that can be done to show that good faith? Because you know that this really isn't meeting the needs of different, or to meet the needs that is affordable to people of different socioeconomic backgrounds. It's just not.
May I respond?
Sure.
So, the only way to meet those needs is described in the bylaw, and that is to allow 4 units per acre. If we are allowed to provide 4 units per acre, then we can absolutely do that mixed size housing type and meet the needs of different socioeconomic backgrounds. But because we are being reduced to 1.5 per acre, which is not what the bylaw really wants you to do, then
That's what we got.
that's
Right.
what we
I
have,
was
you know?
just putting it out there, and like I said, I understand where you're,
And-
I understand why you're getting
And,
what you got.
and all along, we are more than willing to increase the density and lower the size of the units in order to create better affordability. But we can't wipe the density off the table and then fulfill the smaller houses. You
Well,
know, it's.
Okay, so, so talked about that, and then the final point is related to amenities, and I would say that there is another applicant who has gone through and identified out of a list of items what they could possibly provide in terms of additional amenities. Granted, they happen to be closer to a school that can provide that, and you're close to the Whitetail Woods, but is there anything else on the site itself that you all can provide? If you could please consider that as well.
When you say provide, you mean build and create, or something that
Well-
you're just building in a place that's something's
So-
already there?
so
So
for-
it doesn't cost to build or anything,
So
to
for-
provide to that school, is that what you mean?
No. So, as an example, the other applicant is providing, I believe it's a gazebo, a community garden, a bocce ball area, I mean, just amenities, additional items. That's all I'm asking, for them to take a look as to whether or not there's anything else that they can do for seniors. Because the path, the trail to Whitetail Woods, it's already there, it already exists. That's all.
So, Anna, I do believe that we could, come up with something in terms of a gazebo and bocce courts, or,
Right, it doesn't have to be
something
that, I'm
along
just
those
saying as an
lines.
example, right?
We just want to make sure that, so one thing that would have to happen with that, unless the town's going to maintain it, then that would have to reside on where is currently allotted for open space. So that would have to come out of the calculation.
If I may, one of the amenities I think that they are providing is the additional open space. Instead of providing the minimum that was required in the bylaw, they've added additional open space. And sometimes, which in this case, as Mark would like to say, this is good, usable open space. I think that right there is an amenity itself. And I wouldn't want to see them sort of bocce court on it, or community
Okay.
gardens or anything. So I think they provided, in my
Well-
opinion, that amenity through the increase of open space.
All right, thanks for your input.
Roger?
So, that
I
was,
think Jamie could agree with me. This is a unique piece of open space where it can be used as agricultural. The whole town is going to receive this open space. Anybody can put a garden in there, not just the people in that subdivision. But everybody in town can use that open space. Now, what better amenity is there than that? And it's all uplands.
No wetlands in there. Also, I just want to make sure that it's realized that that open space parcel with that calculation does not include the open space up closer to Spectacle Pond Road in terms of the calculation.
Well, let me take a look.
Absolutely.
We set the plan up with two open space parcels. The larger one, open space 1, is in excess in itself of your 30%. It's about 36% on its own. We have another open space parcel in the front, which is right here, okay, which could be perhaps maintained by the homeowners association and be used for some of these amenities, like a meeting area or something like that. So we've kind of been thinking about those lines already. So I think we have an opportunity. We have an open space parcel that would meet your 30% and exceed your 30% that could be deeded to the town, and we'd still have the ability to put some of those in. And we can think about that.
I'm going to open up to the residents because we're running late, and I at least want to hear from the residents who at least were at the meeting. Sir in the front first. Name?
Yeah, Paul Fitzmakian, 32 Lawrence Street. You all should be commended for being here, the residents who've worked with you, the board, you guys have worked really hard on this. And you guys have been, and Mr. Kennard and your son, you guys have worked really hard on this, and I think you brought the town a really great plan. Mark, to your point, through the chair.
He is the
Oh,
chair.
through the chair.
He might sound like he's the chair half the time, but
All
I
right. The way the bylaw is written right now, you're not going to get affordability without having government subsidies. It's just not going to happen. You're not going to get things. The whole thing is not going to, unless you have like condominiums or something like that. Single-family residences are never going to be below $200,000. If that's like senior affordability, fixed income affordability. We have the 2 units on this, but you're going to need to get government subsidy for there to be, a subdivision that's all affordable, I think. What you have here, I appreciate all the work that the Plnbrds have done on this. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They want to get the affordable units. You've got residents who have really thrown up the gauntlet in terms of density on this. You're not going to get the 30 units back on that property. The town, they're going to flip, and you're never going to have another affordable, high-density development in this town. The town will vote it out, and you'll be stuck. It's not going to happen. I say the town needs to go ahead and give the Plnbrds this, and then at town meeting, we're going to try to fix the senior housing development plan, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And one of the things on that is that you've suggested that there's going to be mixed units in the new proposal, I believe, which I think is going to go a long ways to addressing some of the problems that you see in this plan, some of the problems that you see, Mark, and then hopefully, one of the things you want is getting some of this money into the affordability funding, that together with federal funding and maybe state funding, we can actually go ahead and build something that addresses the affordability for even lower income people. But in this particular situation, it's never going to get to the situation where we're going to be having units that are, $200,000, $170,000 units for people who need that. I think that they've come a long way. I think this is as good as we're going to get, and I think we should go ahead with it.
Thank you. In the back, please.
Hi, Diana Paradise, 10 Cricket Lane. Just a quick comment and then a question to the board. With all due respect to the board members, it's disappointing to have heard this comment a second time now that the neighbors should have ponied up $20,000 to $35,000 a piece if we really wanted the land. We actually tried. And the price was so exorbitant that it couldn't be done. So anybody who thinks that there's $20,000 to $35,000 per households to be able to afford something like this, you're in a really special position. My question to the board, though, is, and I appreciate all of your feedback, the peer review, Judy's peer review, did provide some significant concerns with things that are just not going to change, right? The location can't change. The fact that the price of these houses are too expensive for the intended audience. The ability for this intended audience to have accessible amenities. It's a big enough piece of land, but it's not a big enough piece of land. And I think we're trying to do an awful lot with it. The pricing, the fact that we continue to hear that it's not serving the intended audience. Let's think about what we just heard tonight, again, from members of the board. It's called the senior housing bylaw, but your board members have talked several times calling it elderly housing. It's very different than what we see here. So the question that I have, and maybe you could provide some guidance, and maybe you haven't come quite to a decision yet, is where do you all stand on the fact that we're going to have a town meeting and we're going to look at revisiting the bylaws because we know there are things that we want to change? Do we want this to go forward, knowing that it's not necessarily addressing the needs of the folks that we intended to support for a whole host of reasons that likely are not going to change? Or do we think about utilizing this piece of land for a different type of development and really, really focusing on getting it right for the folks that we want to get it right? Because I'm hearing that there are other parcels in town that folks are saying could be much more ideal locations for the types of amenities, the types of mixed-use housing, the types of potential pricing, and all the things that go along with location, which we can't change location. We know real estate, location, location, location. We can't change those things here. So just curious as to what your thoughts are. Are we really looking at moving forward with something like this, or are we looking at maybe this isn't the best thing, do a regular traditional residential development, and really focusing on doing the right thing in the right place for those folks that we really want to serve.
Can you address part of that?
Sure.
I realize that, you're addressing that to me, and we've had a number of people come before the project, before us, and the point in particular, a lady who lived up on the Upper Hill in Westford says, I don't want to look at, would you do that?
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I don't want to look at roofs of buildings and air conditioning units and everything else. Well, then, the land was there, it was for someone to buy, to develop, because those are the opportunities that presented themselves. And again, for you guys to turn around and say, well, we don't want this, and we don't want that, we don't want this, well, you're hamstringing the Jones who had the property for sale to get what, and they've had it for all these years, So it's not to denounce the fact that you like the open space, and I do too. And again, I wish there wasn't another house built in Littleton. I like the smallness of it, I do. But unfortunately, we also don't have the right to take someone's land away from, somebody has 5 acres out of those people that he had said. Well, how much of that 5 acres is that guy really? That's you?
Can I respond to that, actually? So I'll
Please.
respond to a couple things.
Yeah.
So first of all, I did inquire about buying the field so that we could preserve it. By the time I found out about it, it was already under contract.
Yeah.
The lawyers were all over it, and there was a significant price increase over what that land would have been valued at had it not been
Taken out of 61?
from being in consideration for a developer. So it was.
So they got the market value for it, is what the
They got
Jones did.
significantly over market value from what any land in the town goes for per acre. So that's the first thing. The second thing is there isn't a 5-acre plot. That 5-acre plot was an A&R that got approved last year that I did purchase a piece of it for the very reason I wanted to make sure that I protected my property, and I bought a piece of that abutting land.
Right.
So more than happy to do that when it's appropriate. I just thought it was a little bit forward to suggest that folks can easily pool money like that. But just so that you know, it was pursued. We were totally not even being able to step up to the table and discuss it because it was already so far down the road, which was actually a shame because if there were mechanisms in place that the town could have perhaps had that right of first refusal in such a way that you could have negotiated what the price of that property was, it may have actually been more attractive from a cost perspective for you all to be able to do it. But coming up with $1 million or 1.2 knocks
that's,
people out when you're dealing
I'm,
with those types of
I'm gonna stop the both of you.
Anyway,
That's not productive
totally
to.
different, but that's totally different.
You asked a question of the board
Yeah.
where we were at with the 19 units in front of us, and you deserve an answer from the board
Thank you.
as a whole, okay? I'm gonna go on record and say I like the project. I think it needs to be tweaked. I don't think you can tell the Kennards not to go forward. They're not under any restriction to whatever gets changed at town meeting. This is the project in front of us. I've voiced my concerns that I think there are other things we need to do about it, but I like the fact that they listened to the neighbors, they reduced it down to 19, and I'm still supporting moving forward with it. I'm gonna ask the rest of the board their concerns, whether they wanna go forward or whether they wanna stop right now. I'm gonna ask Peter where you're at with this. Do you wanna go forward with 19 and continue the discussion with the Kennards?
I don't see we do. The project they propose to us now is the best case scenario that I feel as opposed to the 30 and the 6 houses. I don't understand
Okay.
that. So
Jamie?
I think this is the best case scenario for the neighbors, for the town, for the open space. And there's not much really
Okay.
to discuss as far as I'm concerned.
That would be an affirmative. Jamie?
I'm a huge open space advocate. I've seen a lot of developments before my time here and a lot that, I came on the board that were just getting finished out, and there's a lot of folks that think a little walkway between developments is open space, and, this family is before us, they're developers, they live in town, his kids have grown up here, and I like seeing a huge tract of open space, and I see it abutting.
No, I'm gonna ask you now.
I see it abutting another piece of conservation land, so I think that this is one of the better developments that we've seen come in front of us, and it reminds me a lot of Gray Farm. And as a young kid, I hated to see that get developed. It was when I was riding my pony all across town, and as I got a little bit older, it started getting developed, and I could still use it, and it's one of the most beautiful places, I think, that have been preserved, but have kind of evolved with time together. So I like this.
Anna, what do you think? He doesn't want to go next. What do you think?
I think it's unfortunate that we have a situation that I think meets the bylaw. It's not ideal, but it meets the bylaw. I also, because the applicant asked us to talk about, or he says, applicant welcomes the direction of the planning board for the 55 deeded restriction. I think we should at least discuss that as well.
Do you want to weigh in, or do you want to be the mystery?
No, I want to commend the board for stepping forward in supporting this project, and absolutely 100% have my support.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Yes, sir, right there.
Yeah, Ron Forney, 4 Cricket Lane. I've been talking this over with a number of the butters here, and we have feel that there should be a formal risk assessment that would benefit all stakeholders involved. So that would be the Canards, the town, the butters, residents, and our ultimate customer, the seniors in Littleton.
Risk
Now,
assessment from what?
well, every project has risks. You've had these peer reviews, which would not be considered risk assessments. Those would be second opinions. Now, there's a risk assessment procedure that's used not in one industry, but every industry around the world. It's used by NASA, it's used by offshore energy projects, it's used by medical companies, it's used by every automotive
I
company in
could
the world.
see if they were blasting here, but you're not going to be blasting here, right? It's going to be standard construction. They're going to have green engineering out there every step of the way, watching pipes go in, everything else like that.
Well, all the things you've talked about are risks. The things you've talked about not being affordable, that's a risk.
That has nothing to do with risk. Risk is if they're going to do some damage to your property, and
No.
well, I don't.
A risk is that the project will not be successful for the stakeholders.
No, everybody takes a chance. When you buy a piece of land and you're a developer, you take that risk. I don't think Mr. Kennard is going to.
Not required. It's
Yeah,
not
he's not
required, but it would benefit the Kennards. Well, could I ask you this question? If we took it upon ourselves as residents to actually do a risk assessment, would you accept the document and put it into the public record?
You're gonna fund it?
Yes, we're gonna do it ourselves.
By an independent
It's
company like Green or?
No,
or-
the way you do a risk assessment is the
No,
stakeholders.
I'm sorry, I asked.
It's the stakeholders that actually are the best people to do the risk assessment. It's a cross-functional team.
You're within your rights to do that as a review, but we're not asking the developer to do any risk assessment. If you want to do it and hand it to us as part of this, we're not going to hold the process up if it's going to take 6 months to do it or anything else like that.
No, we want to make this a better project for everybody. We don't want to stop it. We wanted to improve it and make it better for the seniors, make it better for the town of Littleton.
So you kind of, that's a slippery slope I'd say you're on your own on that one. If you want to present it to us, it's part of the process, we'll obviously take it we'll accept your.
Okay, thank you. Just one last thing. Wanted to point out that some of the facts that were presented in that letter are not correct. And the assumption about what the butters believe, what they believe their butters' opinion is, are also not correct. But that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer Manicum, 11 Cricket Lane. as a follow-up of the meeting that we all had with the Canards, I'm just wondering, will there be another opportunity to meet together as a group with the developers? The first time we saw this plan was at that meeting, and while we have had some opportunity to talk to all the neighborhoods, all the neighbors, there are still some concerns, and so will there be another opportunity? Are the Canards open to having another meeting?
You have the floor right now. Would you like to voice some of those concerns now, so that we could be aware of it as well?
I mean, I think they're very specific things, and again, we were here to speak sort of as, not personally, but as representatives of the neighbors, for example, one of the concerns expressed was that, the way the layout is now, is there a way to more equitably situate the homes, in terms of the open space? I know everyone loves the open space, and everyone's talked about how fantastic the open space is, but, the current plan, has all of the Cricket Lane residents absorbing the majority of the impact of this development. So, where all the open space is pushed over onto the side. So, that's an example of something that neighbors have mentioned. And, is there a way to just have another meeting with the Canards? And I understand they're very opposed to.
If I may, just, if they push it one way or another, then they're gonna impact the abutters on the other side. If they push it to the back, they would impact the abutters in the back.
And we asked them for contiguous open space, large
I
parts.
realize that, I
So-
recognize that, but that's why I'm saying, is there a way for,
I don't think the Canards would be opposed, and I don't want to speak for them, but I'm sure that they'd be happy to meet with you offline anytime. Or if they set up the first meeting, I'm sure they'd be willing to talk to you, because the last thing is they want to come in here and battle it out in front of the planning board. I think they'd be happy to listen to your concerns, and they've been very responsive to our concerns, so I would think they'd be responsive to your concerns.
Yeah, I think that we'd be willing to certainly hear the concerns. I would just ask that the concerns that are brought forward are not the same that we have already done our very best to address. Because the site plan that we have here is a more than 6 month or approximately 6 month culmination of all of the feedback that we have received every step of the way. And I just want to make sure that if we are going to meet, that it's productive for both sides, rather than rehashing items that we have already done our best to address, and that we have already hired very high-paid engineers to lay it out as best as possible. So,
All right.
And I
we're
wouldn't,
happy
we
to
wouldn't ask
meet
you
as long
to
as-
incur more engineering costs. I know that's a great concern for you. And
Yep.
so we wouldn't ask you to incur more engineering costs before having just a working session with you. But
That's
I will
fine.
say, this is brand new to us, right? 10 days
You
ago,
guys,
so.
you guys work it out, I'm sure, and if you want Anna and I to attend, we'll try to do
That would
be
be
there as
great.
well.
As everyone said, this is the first iteration. It's the first implementation of this bylaw. And
Oh, Peter
everyone has
can.
said they have to make it work.
Somebody
So
can.
we really hope that
Yes.
we can have that happen.
We're running a little late, so could we, if there's something new, could?
Yeah, I just.
No, wait, I took the lady
Sorry,
next to, she
I'm
would.
sorry.
You were.
Me,
Yeah.
okay. Stacy Scott, One Baron Way. So again, I want to echo what everyone's saying. Thank you very much for all of your help, and to Steve and Roger for cooperating and trying to help us all find a compromise. It's actually been really helpful and really great to see that everyone's kind of advocating for both the seniors and the neighbors. The density that we have now, I feel, is kind of our best case scenario, considering what it could be. I'm not of the mindset that you can really control too much what landowners can do with their land. It's their right, it's their property to do what they can and want to do. So my question is kind of twofold. It's one to the board, is affordability is now a big issue. So have you guys identified what price point you're trying to hit for the seniors that is affordable?
The affordable units are gonna be 187,000, if that's what you're talking about.
No, so for any developers that come forward, what's the price point? Is it 380, 280? Like, what's the selling price for these seniors that you're trying to sell them to?
Go ahead.
So, on town floor at the next town meeting, we're actually proposing some modifications to the senior residential development bylaw. And it's actually, one of the proposals is a sliding scale. So the 10% affordable at the AMI of 80%, thank you. And then a scale up and down of that, so that you can get some affordable units, let's say that they're all, if they were all to be sold at market rate, they're 500,000.
Yep.
There would be a sliding scale where a percentage, somewhere in that 25 or 50% would be 120%, 150% of AMI. You know, so up and down of that 80%, you could push them lower than 80%. It'd be really hard to do, because then they'd be working for, they'd have to sell 4 to make money on 1, you know.
Right.
But the scale's out there, and that's what we've been working on as a board, and I think we can make this bylaw better.
Yeah.
And I think, to Anna's point, you know, through the studies that they did through the master plan, that location is important, and I think there's parts of town that we've looked at that we'd really like to see, if this is gonna occur again in town, that they incur in certain locations, i.e. the train station, the common. There's a few others that are centrally located that would make sense. So going forward, I think we can make this better.
Okay.
But I think what we have now is pretty darn good for what we have.
Right, right. And I get it, it is what it is for what we have now. And one of the remarks that Steve, I don't know if I can directly talk to him, but had made during the meeting was that the possibility of creating kind of like a base model for the homes that wouldn't have necessarily all of the upgraded finishes, like granite countertops, wood floors, crown molding, those types of things. So my question to them is, what percentage can that decrease the housing price if you were to create a base model and let people upgrade if they wanted to? But if not, and you guys are willing to construct these baseline homes, is that a way we could find a compromise where we could bring the prices down to more affordability?
Yeah, we can certainly work the numbers and let you know how much percentage-wise a base model would bring down without, like a stripped-down version.
Yeah.
We'd
Yeah.
have to obviously run the numbers.
Right,
before we
right.
just-
It seems like that would be an exercise worth doing if affordability is an issue, if there's a way to do that.
So at your next charrette with the neighborhood, bring that information.
Anyone else who want to kind of weigh in the background?
It's just a comment. Kristen Warner, 25 Cricket Lane. Just as a neighborhood, I just wanted to, we would like to see this be constructed in the true sense of it being a senior housing, under the senior housing bylaw. And we do want to see a 55 age restriction put in. So that's just a comment. Just as a neighborhood, that's what we like.
Thank you. Sir.
Jerry Paul, 8 Uplands Road. I'm here on behalf of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, and we advocate for people of all abilities to get outside and enjoy nature. And for this target audience, I think it would be nice if we had a handicapped accessible trail in that open space, maybe just a loop trail that would be handicapped accessible so wheelchairs can get out there. And the issue is if you don't put these in now, then the group tries to put it in later, then your butters start, it's something new, and then you have to go through the whole planning process. But if the builder put one in, I don't think it would be very high cost, and it targets this audience, little loop trail in the back open space so they go out and enjoy that.
Thank you. Sir, this is going to be the last one for this
Rob
meeting.
Hart, 7 Mary Way. Just want to say, I think we've made tremendous progress. And I want to thank the Kennards, the neighbors for participating in a very good discussion. I also want to thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Houston for joining that discussion. I think that helped us feel like our voices are being heard. I think we've got strong momentum now. I think we're really making great progress, and where I think I'm holding back and waiting for is the details matter. Because you can start off with a plan and say it looks pretty good, but there's so many elements of this that we're still looking at, and we need to figure out. I support Mr. Forney's comments about he's an expert in the area of risk analysis, and sometimes something like that can help uncover something. And I don't believe, I know him, and I know he's not trying to stall the process. It's just something that we think would be useful, and it might uncover some information that would help us manage these details, because the details at the town level may not matter that much, but when you're living right next to it, it does matter. And so I guess I would end with the idea that these neighbors are very invested in this process. We intend to stay invested. We appreciate all that you as a board have done and others have done. And so I want to just praise you for that work, and we want to continue this conversation.
Thank you. So we'll continue this.
Actually, I'm going to ask about process. Right at the moment, they have the preliminary subdivision, and we have the 2 public hearings open, one for the senior residential development and one for the Aquifer Water Resource District special permit. Are you looking to continue all of that, or are you ready to make a decision on the preliminary and have a vote to the definitive? Because the details will come in the special permits that are open now, plus the definitive that's to be developed.
Are you comfortable enough with this to go into definitive, or you wanna?
I am.
Okay, that's one.
I am.
Yeah, I think we can go definitive. And we can get the.
Could I ask a question? So did I hear you right that you're suggesting perhaps closing the preliminary subdivision hearing but keeping the special permit open?
Right, the preliminary in Littleton is not a hearing, it's.
Yeah, you're right.
It's an informal.
Approving the, yeah.
Right.
So it's,
So basically, all we've done is we've given you the directive to go forward with this 19th unit
Okay.
plan
that's what I was looking to
of
hear.
a senior residential.
Because if we don't have the special permit in place for the SRD,
Right.
it's hard to.
Not
it's hard-
yet, but
it's-
that's, we've given you direction that that's how we want you to go, as opposed to, you can always go back to the convention if you decide to, but
Okay.
we've given you.
We did hear, we do appreciate that sort of straw vote, for lack of a better word, so thank you.
All right. Okay, so,
Could I ask one question? Quickly.
very quick.
Peer review, will there be a additional peer review on this new
In the
design?
definitive.
Yeah, in definitive. So,
Is that by
anyway.
Just Green?
I don't know, we haven't figured that one out yet. Where are we at? What,
So what does your timing look like, I guess?
can we skip till December with you, or do you think you'd have stuff ready in November?
We'll be ready in November.
Well, you need to open another public hearing for the definitive.
Right.
So you need that month application, a month ahead of that.
You have to submit a definitive application today.
Yeah, you're not gonna make
Maybe
one.
December. For December. For definitive.
4 weeks in advance, so
Yeah.
December is possible.
Okay, we'll put you on to
It's a
December.
good thing you're highly paid.
Well, if you continue the two open public hearings until December, and then based on your schedule, if we're ready to open the definitive or continue them all again until the later meeting, you have that option.
So continue from now on.
They're gonna keep this.
Yeah, we're gonna continue for now.
Continue, and then you guys get your application in for definitive.
Okay, anything else? Good.
So, no vote to motion?
You want a motion to continue the two special permits, and do you want to formally take a vote on the preliminary?
I'll make a motion to continue the two public hearings, special permit and the senior SRD bylaw. And then I also make a motion to move to definitive subdivision plan.
For an open
For open
space,
space.
senior residential development.
What she said.
Right, what she said. Anyone want to second that?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
We're running late, we have an 8:30.
Oh, really?
Got a minute?
We're gonna miss the Patriots game. My fault.
Thank you.
Me being on the Peter taught it, Peter. Peter taught it. 8:30. What?
And the swing,
Yeah, and the swing.
Yeah.
And the slides.
and the merry-go-round.
Yeah. On everything. Okay, we have an 8:30, continue public hearing, 245 Foster Street.
If you want to share with us.
I don't have an easel.
Okay. Give us an update of what's going on?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Douglas DeShane, representing the applicant with me, the applicant, Mr. Shaw. We are hopefully going to help you get back on track with your schedule because we have a very short presentation this evening. We are proposing a dramatic modification of the plan. As you can see from the plan that we just passed out, we have eliminated the proposed commercial building from the site. We have relocated the parking lot more towards the front of the site. The motivation for that is somewhat twofold. First of all, I don't think it's a surprise that the proposed commercial building that we brought forth was not entirely thrilled, or people weren't entirely thrilled with it. And my client was contacted by the MBTA during our process, and the MBTA would like to actually take control of this parking lot, and so they've asked us to relocate it, and we've done so by removing the proposed commercial building. So at this point, our plan has been reduced to nothing but the proposed, that shows 149 spots. Our original parking lot was 150, so it's comparable in size. Quite frankly, this parking lot and the efforts with the MBTA allow my client the opportunity to take that commercial building off the site, wait to see what the town comes back with in terms of the study that I understand is being done as to the highest and best use and potential for this site, so that we can actually wait to see what the results of that are, and then hopefully come back with with development of the site, the remaining portion of the site, in a manner that's consistent with what the town is looking for. We look forward to the opportunity to do that. I think we do have similar goals. We've talked from the beginning about senior housing, assisted living, independent assisted living, and we're still of that mindset. We're hopeful that the town's analysis and reports will support that, but if it doesn't, we'll see what it does support and see if we can come up with a project that will satisfy that. So at this point, we're proposing this amendment. I'd ask we're happy to answer any questions about it, but at this point, would ask the board to send it off to Green for review of this drainage, which is much simplified now, as you can imagine. And then we can come back to talk about what the board thinks about this project and our new simplified, reduced scope.
Who's gonna own it, actually?
My clients.
You're gonna own it, so the MBTA is not gonna own it?
They will not.
20-year minimum
It's a
lease.
20-year lease.
So it's always in your possession?
It is, yes.
Okay.
So the town will continue to earn taxes from this property
If I
for
may,
20
Mr. Chair.
years.
Sure.
So a couple of questions. First of all, I know there was some opposition to the commercial structure that was once proposed. With this, and I see a beginning of a road or cul-de-sac going down back behind the parking, will screening remain on Foster Street?
Yes, we're going to leave that approximately 40 to 55-foot buffer zone. We won't have to touch any of the existing trees whatsoever, so that entire buffer will stay. And then, as you can see, we have a fairly expanded, probably in the order of 20 to 30 feet of vegetated area before you actually hit the pavement. So we'll have a vegetated buffer of approximately, I don't know, let's say 60 to 80 feet along the entire front. But most importantly, we will not have to touch any of the trees along Foster Street except where we break through for the curb cut.
My next question would be, if this road future, and so when you mentioned the study for the property, it's actually a study for the whole area. I want to clarify that. And then in that, I think that, and as that road creates a new development of some sort, that there, in that new development, be aware that we would probably be looking for a buffer at that point from the parking on that side as well. So down the road.
Yes, as you can see, we've aligned our cul-de-sac with the existing crossing.
So I think that, just be aware, I mean, the buffer here, I think is, I'm grateful that you're proposing to preserve it, but sometime in here, there might be a request.
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Anyone else?
But you rub your back to someone.
Anna?
So originally, when there was a building there, I was wondering where it was. I kept looking at it.
Yeah.
Where is it? There was going to be a little footbridge because parking was going to be off to the back side. Is the parking going to be now forward enough that
This
whole
is
idea?
Foster Street right here.
Yeah.
The building was going to be right here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
So
this
now
is
the
right.
access,
So we don't need that anymore.
no, the access
How
would
far is
be,
the walk to the train station now with that? You'll actually go down on Foster Street, walk down Foster Street, and then go to the parking lot?
You'll walk down our road, and then the new sidewalk that's being built along Foster Street, you'd get on there and then cross. I'm guessing, to be honest, Peter, but I guess the distance where we were way back, and even if you were able to bridge over, you still gotta walk up. It's probably a comparable distance.
Half a mile?
No, it's not that far. No.
300 yards?
Yeah, 200 yards, I mean.
Okay.
All right, good, thank you, bye.
All right,
All right, good. Oh, yeah.
would it be okay if we forward the drainage calculations and to Green?
Yes.
Sure.
Well,
Thank you.
What timing for continued public hearing?
Can we push them to December?
No, I think, no, we go to November because it's a quick one. I think let's get the little.
Well, we got 50 quick ones, and how did we make up tonight?
No, we did, we had 50 long ones, this is a quick one. I say we go November 1.
Okay. Will you be done by then?
For probably, yeah, it looks like a smaller site.
Okay.
We'll have to.
All right, November 1 then.
Thank you for considering.
Right, perfect. Thank you.
For considering working with the information that we'll be receiving from the consultant.
Just one. You are gonna own this property for 20 years.
No, he's gonna own it until he sells it, but he's not selling it to the MBTA.
Right.
Where did I
I'm building
hear
this
20
right
years?
now with my own
Where
dollars.
did I hear 20 years?
20-year lease with the MBTA, so they'll pay him rent, he'll pay taxes to us.
Correct.
For 20 years?
Yes.
What I just said?
Well, except he could sell it in the meantime, and then some other landowner would sell, would pay the taxes.
Well, what happens if he sells it to somebody else doesn't have the same opportunity, and they turn around and sell it to the MPA?
Once we sign a lease with the MBTA, anyone we sell it to, they'll have to honor that lease.
Well, that needs to be put in, that the town receives taxes from that property for 20 years as part of the.
That'll be as we go through.
Why not? Why? What do? We've given up.
I don't think Mr. Shaw intends to sell the property.
I have no.
Intentions in reality are not always the same things, are they?
We can't push it out too far.
Right, I mean.
There it is.
All right, we'll see you in November.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Okay, 8:45, 151 Taylor Street. Oh, you're really late.
Thank you for your patience.
I told them we wouldn't start before 8:45. They knew to ask them if they should show up at 7.
How about Patriots?
Hopefully we're quick also.
That's over with.
All right. All right, what do you have different for us from the last time?
You will.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for.
Go ahead. Give us
Sound.
the Reader's Digest version.
Certainly. Matt Snell, on behalf of 151 Taylor BE LLC, the Bullfinch Companies. With me tonight is Mark Dior, General Counsel from Bullfinch. Our engineer, Metro West Engineering, Brian Nelson, and Sean Kelly from BAI, the traffic consultant. This is the continued hearing for the proposed redevelopment of 151 Taylor Street from the existing office building to a distribution center. We're here tonight seeking a major industrial use special permit, aquifer and water resource district special permit, and approval of site plan. At the last hearing, we went through architecture, design, site plan, traffic, landscaping, and our intent is not to do that again tonight unless there are specific things you'd like to see. Otherwise, the one outstanding issue at the last hearing was review by Green Engineering of the site plan and compliance. Green prepared a comment letter, which we have responded to, and which they have responded to our responses. And I think generally, all of the items that Green commented on have been covered and were deemed adequate, although there were several items that were noted for the planning board to look at. And again, I think all of those issues, we can walk through each of them if you'd like, but I think all of those issues we covered last week, at the last hearing. We can certainly walk through the remaining the outstanding ones.
Yeah, Green's last letter was things that were deferred to the planning board for direction, and then one that just to notify Conservation Commission of a change that they'll have to look at again.
Okay. Why don't you just give us the synopsis of what you want us to weigh in? You're good from a technical standpoint,
Yeah, Courtney's gonna say.
yeah, from everything else, so why don't you just hit us with it and we'll tell you whether we like it or we don't. How's that? This is the expedited.
Hello, I'm new.
8:30, 9:30 pit plan.
My name's Courtney Semmel, I'm with Green International, so I'm
Okay.
John's colleague. This is my first time
Welcome.
being here. So as, Matt mentioned, we gave some comments, they gave us comments back, we gave additional comments. They addressed all of our major comments from the original letter pertaining to, we had some concerns about truck turning off of Taylor Street because there's that median in the driveway, so they proposed to take some of that median out, and they showed some additional truck turning figures that showed that trucks can move in and out off of Taylor Street, and we think that what they've presented is acceptable. There were some concerns or just questions about the pavement thickness because there are going to be large trucks coming in and out of here all the time. Whether or not that was looked at closely enough, they provided calculations that show that the pavement thickness should be adequate based on loading. And then our other comments were about the aquifer district. There's some specific requirements about chemicals and they addressed all of those. They brought in consultants to speak to the conditions of the site. And then I had some other comments about the water main design, and that's all been coordinated. So those are all the things that we had concerns with, and they've all been addressed. In a nutshell, what remains is just things that are sort of more subjective that we would defer to the planning board. The first comment is just, comment number 1 is about whether or not you guys would like to review the accessible parking space signage. I know some boards are particular about that.
I don't think we're too worried about that.
We revised our
I just-
plan
I just
because
wanna
there
make sure
was
you
one
flipped it
upside
over.
down, yeah,
Well,
so the new plans have it the right way.
I'm more about the actual sign and the one on the pole,
No, I
but,
think we're good.
yeah.
But make sure it's there.
Yeah.
So, the next one is the existing driveway that comes off of Taylor Street is in poor condition, and our recommendation was to reconstruct that and possibly even provide heavy-duty pavement. And the response was that the applicant will inspect the driveway, so I'm not really sure where we stand on that, if you want that to be completed or not.
So I
How about if we put some verbiage in there that when they get the building done, they make sure the pavement is adequate for the trucks to go out there, and we'll have either you or the town engineers take a look at it to make sure, even if you have to
Okay.
core it or something like that.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that it's adequate for the trucks that are proposed to go on.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly fine, because ultimately now that we're also gonna move that median around a little bit, so there's gonna be work. And
Sure.
I think the intent is that if you're building, a new Class A building, that
Mhm, you want
you
it.
don't really want the entrance to be beaten down, so.
Okay. That was easy.
Told you it would be quick.
All right, and then there's one about, they made some changes to the truck turning movements, and we just wanted to make sure that the Concom is aware if there's any additional impacts to the 50-foot buffer. And then comment number 7, it discusses, in the bylaws, it talks about major topographic changes be minimized. They're proposing to fill almost the entire south side of the building to put in a fire lane, and that's the request of the fire department, so we feel like it's acceptable, but we would just defer to you whether or not you.
I think we're okay with that.
And then, in that location, also within the bylaws, it talks about having a dense collection of trees and removal of existing trees be minimized. They're removing trees in order to install the fire lane, but there are, next to Monarch Drive, it's a private lane, and then there's additional trees between Monarch Drive and 495, so I don't know if you want to weigh in on.
You have plenty of screening from this in Monarch Drive, but not around the building because they put trees right around the outside. Do you have a problem with the fact that they're taking the trees out so they can put a fire lane in?
It's a request of the fire department,
Yeah.
it just keeps the occupants safe.
So then we can put back to try and screen some of it in another fashion somewhere.
Yeah, if
along
it's
that side.
required, yeah.
And the landscaping plan, we are putting trees back in that area.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Yeah, the landscape plan I saw only showed 4 new trees, so I don't know what.
Which I think is what the zoning required, it's the number. And because, as we showed last week, it's so low, or last time, it's so low that having trees along there, it really doesn't change the view from the trees in front of it, so.
Okay.
And number 9 discusses adequate access to the structure for fire and service equipment. Obviously, they're putting in a fire lane with a turnaround, and our just standard comment that is just whether or not formal approval from the fire and police departments is needed.
And we met with the fire department, and all the departments.
They wanted it.
They wanted it, and it was
They
designed.
wanted
that way.
access around all
Yeah.
4 sides, that's fine.
That was our understanding.
That's it, right?
Let me see, number 15. Oh, yeah, we don't have, for the actual granting of the major industrial use special permit, everything that they provided seemed acceptable to us, but obviously you guys would be willing to make the determination on that.
So we'll draft a decision with all the bells and whistles that we all normally put in there. Send it over to town council, make sure they're good with it, and we'll vote it,
Share with them and.
share with you guys, as long as all the verbiage is correct, and you guys are happy, we'll vote this at next meeting. Is that good? We'll squeeze you in November 1st?
So you would like this one near the beginning?
November 1st.
We'll do it, we'll get you guys in early. How's
So
that?
why can't we get Great Farm in here?
They're gonna be right after them, teeter-totter man. Peter teeter-totter, right after them, so,
There is one other item. It's quick, it's very quick. We had submitted a minor amendment to the application. In the pending time since we filed and had the first hearing, we've been approached by UPS to park temporarily for 5 months trailers on the property. The property's vacant. We ran it by the building commissioner, who there's an email that we submitted, that the use will be permitted now, presently, and just the storage of trucks, nothing, no equipment being unloaded or anything of the sort. And then but to be above board with you, since we're getting an approval for the new distribution center, we would ask that there be a condition that we can store those trailers temporarily for the 5 months. So it would be kind of pending while we do our construction drawings and things.
that's fine. Does the board have any problem? It's a parking lot.
Oh, you're asking us now?
I'm telling you.
But you already said it was fine.
I don't have a problem
Well,
with it.
which is it?
Do you have a problem with it?
So just to be clear, the trucks are going there and they're just parking for 5 months, or they're going to be going in and out?
I think there'll be some in and out. I don't think it's
We
daily.
don't have all the details, but yeah, there'll be some in and out, but the
It's
the
an allowed
plan they've
use
given us
currently.
is just
Yeah.
kind of parking, because they don't have enough space where they are at this point.
Because I'm sure as soon as people see the UPS trucks, they'll start wondering, oh, is there a UPS facility there?
It's probably gonna be behind the building. We're not even gonna see them, are we?
Yeah, they're proposing, I think,
Yeah,
one
but I
row
mean, like on
behind
the
the
road.
building, and probably another row towards one other edge of the property, so that there's no issue with getting access
So
to
it's
the building
dead
itself.
storage for their extra trucks while they
Essentially.
anticipate their Christmas rush.
That's how
and
we
stuff like
understand it, yeah.
One more question.
that. Sure, what?
Related to Max?
I'm not.
All right, so we'll continue this. We should probably close the hearing, don't you think? Vote on it?
Yeah.
Or you wanna do it on the
No, you could, certainly could, because we're not expecting any more
more
new
information? We can close the hearing, take a
Okay.
vote on it pending,
Make a motion to adjourn.
no, we have to close the hearing first.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
You wanna- Did you wanna vote on it, or you wanna wait till the first?
Vote on, I approve everything they asked for.
It'll
Make
make
a
us feel
motion
like
to
we
close, I'll
accomplished
second.
something.
Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. We'll vote it with conditions on the first, how's that?
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Motion to close the hearing.
No, before we do this, okay. We have, okay, so we have one little issue that has come up, and, Mara and I have talked to town council about conflict of interest. Sandy brought up the fact that she was approached about a potential conflict of interest with the fields. And why don't you, go ahead. You.
Right, to me, it sounds like it's not a conflict of interest, but since the question was raised, it might be the appearance of a conflict. The resolution is a simple filing with paperwork to be filed with the state. It's really pretty simple.
What is the conflict?
My fiance sells material for the development projects.
Thank you, folks. Thank you. So,
You did fine the first time out.
great. Thank you, yeah.
It was,
So the other way to do it would be to get both of you back on.
Did both of who back on?
You and her
No.
back on. So, are you willing to write the letter that it's not, you don't feel it's a conflict and be okay with it? Is that?
yeah, and the reason I brought it up is because of the phone calls and the messages and all that I've received, so.
So can I ask you, do you feel that the applicant has brought this potential that they see as a conflict of interest because, and I want to ask, are they trying to force you to not be able to vote or to weigh in on the proposal before us, the development that they're?
I mean, I would hope not.
Okay.
But you can't, if he's already recused, so if I would have to recuse myself, there's nothing that the board can conduct.
Then the both of you would come back.
Then at that point, it becomes, the rule of necessity takes over, and that's not a state law. It's, has been developed through several court cases. Rule of necessity means that everybody comes back to, and the whole board sets, ignoring the fact of the prior.
So the conflict has been removed from the conversation, so we vote as if there is no conflict and there's no court.
That's my high-level understanding of where
If she does that, then you don't have to come back. If she doesn't do that, then you have to come back too.
Town council is willing to be here for the meeting on November 1st to answer any
Oh,
questions.
yeah, that's not him in there.
You know, if it'd be helpful to the board, he's available.
So if you're willing to get the, how, you want
I think you were provided with the paperwork.
I have.
Yeah, and I'll send you the link, because you could also just do it online.
Okay.
That's easier.
that'll be the easiest thing, keep Peter off of it, thank God. And you just weigh in as like before. Okay? Is that all our board business? Can we?
Motion to close the hearing?
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Shut the TV off. So Nan's been working on the retreat, and
Yes, I want to have